some sort of discussion about SpaceX rockets and stuff. So I'm here to talk and hang out and drink things because that's what I do. So I'm just going to peruse some photos. These are from a guy called David Clift Reeves, who basically said, "Hey, you want to take a look at my photos and use them in a video?" And I, what am I? Who am I to say no? Indeed, we've got. Oh, that's definitely full screen. I can't do all of that. Let's come out of that. Let's go back to these partial ones. So I hope everything's working correctly, because I'm just checking my levels and everything looks good. Obviously, all the cool people are at TwitchCon right now. Cool people does not include me, because I have a lot of stuff going on in the Bay Area this weekend, and therefore I couldn't make it to TwitchCon, and also couldn't make it to Starship Con. Anyway, so what do we got here? We get a picture of just general profile. You know, here's the thing. Sometimes I see these and I think there's gaps running down there, and I realize that it's just the reflection. So, yeah, that's all that there. Look at the shiny. Ooh, shiny. Shiny and chrome. I will ride forever. Shiny and chrome. Now, I'm just wondering, is this thing actually on? Right? Oh, yeah. No, it definitely is on, but for some reason it's showing us through. Oh, yeah, 1080p. Definitely showing live. Why am I seeing 0 viewers? Okay, yeah, maybe we should change this. It says 0 viewers. So how do I actually publish this? Maybe it's not published. I mean, there's a problem here, obviously. Oh dear, and that could be a problem. Let me just pop my live dashboard down here so I can figure out what is going on. Okay, oh, that's strange. Yeah, it still shows 0 viewers. Hey, I don't know, was the notification really slow or something? It doesn't matter. I'm glad we've got people showing up at last. My pick, MEI pick, and we have Lucas, NJM, Smaster, Jason, Tyler, The Fox, Sarcastic 2, Orion McKidd, McDillett, Infocam, Swordstrom, Spaghetti Fish, Sir Mimbo, everything. Yeah, so we're just hanging out, and we're gonna watch Elon's presentation, which should be along any minute now. I'm going to be mostly quiet, but occasionally making sarcastic comments. So you can actually watch his version if you like. It will be ahead of things. I'm just looking at this because you can see the Starship that is going to be put on display. Look at the size of that thing. It's like a Republic transport thing. Well, it might be on Elon time. That is correct. Can anyone figure out why there's this weird cutout here? Why they didn't just have this go straight back? I'm really not sure about why that is, because the design, maybe there's a fairing that's going to go over this, like a bigger fairing that's going to control it, and they just haven't built that yet. Because they do have these fairings that encapsulate. Now, this is looking at the top of their vehicle, so this will fold up towards the camera here. Yeah. Well, we've already got a spruce goose. You see these here. These are the landing legs. There's 6 of these. 2 of them are underneath the wing fairings as well. Funny thing is, this actually lands on less ground area than the Falcon 9. Falcon 9 is like 18-meter landing legs. This is 9-meter. Okay, I have no idea what those are, but they're shiny. I think they've got floodlights set up so they could work. Starship Assembly. I didn't realize they actually had a sign there. That's pretty cool. So again, this is a guy called David Clift Reeves. David Clift Reeves. David Clift Reeves. David Clift Reeves. He has brought us the photos. By the way, what I'm drinking right now is Space and blood orange cider. I figured it was I figured it was appropriate. Space for docking, don't they dock back to back? And maybe that's actually very true. YouTube timer is done and it's now waiting. Well, we'll hear it, no doubt. It just says waiting still. Hopefully the sound will come on so I can groove to the tunes. Let's go back to the pictures. Oh, JPEG files are supported, but something went wrong. Okay, must be a video or something. .jpeg or okay, their website's broken. Dropbox is broken. Let's reload this. Maybe this dude pulled all his photos. Okay, now we're getting photos back again. Look at the latch points there. Now those, presumably they can't be on the final version, right? What's up with your Twitch name? My Twitch name is Syzyzig. I can't spell Syzyg. Long story, but that name has stuck with me. Just like DJ S&M. I like this curve here, by the way. You've got this fairing that sort of goes out a little more gradually. I kind of wish there was a curve here. That would make it look cooler, and some curves here. But other than that... 15-minute delay, great! Does anybody want to ask questions about what we're looking at, what this whole point is? So, as I mentioned, this has been built in Boca Chica, Texas, which is about as far south in Texas as you can get on the coast. It's kind of a marshy, swampy area, but they basically found land, they got a deal, they built out a landing pad, and they've flown stuff. This is now bigger and better and crazier. It is 50 meters tall. That's over like 160, 170 feet, which is quite big. It's 30 feet in diameter, or 9 meters. I think, well, so they moved, so Elon says that he was convinced by an engineer that putting the legs in the wings meant that they had to have a wing that was just dead weight. And having separate landing legs was basically going to give them better, make it lighter overall. The only thing I'm going to say is because they did that, they're now landing on a narrower base. So I don't know if there's going to be a version with wider landing legs that's designed for the moon. Do you think this prototype could actually make a test orbital flight and back? No, I don't think it can. And the reason is it would need a booster to do that. Now, Elon has said that this is 200 tons. The peak thrust of a Raptor is still not entirely clear. Now, officially 200 tons is what they're aiming at, but it's entirely possible. Like, I've heard 150 tons is more realistic right now, and they're still working up to that 200-ton thrust reliably. So, reasonably, they're going to fill that with another 200 tons of fuel, and that won't give them nearly enough delta V. So they're going to be able to fly, they're going to be able to get this thing supersonic, they're going to be able to test the deployment, and hopefully they are going to be able to land it, because that is quite a leap of faith to fly this and get it moving. These are all the same photos. Come on, I want to see if there's any cool ones. Oh, look, I love the crane, by the way. That crane was amazing. Ooh, look at this. Landing leg fairings there. Now I gotta zoom out again. Apparently that's broken. Dropbox, you're broken. I'm gonna reload this page. Wow, we have completely broken this page. I can't zoom out, unfortunately, anymore. How are they gonna make it survive re-entry? So they have given up on the active thermal control system, or at least that's not going to be the main way that they're going to work. They're going to have tiles on the front side, on the windward side. The leeward side is just going to be shiny stainless steel, because stainless steel, of course, it can be made shiny so that it reflects a lot of the thermal radiation, and the leeward side is mostly thermal glow shining back on it. I'm not downloading the photos just yet. We should actually look, by the way. Let's find Elon Musk's Twitter. So if you haven't seen this, right? Elon Musk. Rage against the dying of the light. Yes, look at that. He obviously took a photo of that from inside his Tesla. But where are the photos? Elon Musk Media. Because he shared these. Now look at these. These are the Raptor engines which are inside the Starship prototype, right? So at least these two here, as far as I can tell, haven't been... Or sorry, wait a second. Two of these, I think these two haven't been fired. This one has been fired, I think. So if I've got it right, two of these are serial number... These are serial numbers 9, 10, and 11. Two of these, 10 and 11, have come directly from the factory in Hawthorne, and they haven't been test fired. So after this, they will probably be taken out and actually shipped over to McGregor so that they can be test fired, and then they'll put them back in and they'll be able to fly it then. There's a lot of other work to do. Look at these. Also, no, not for flight. Just in case. Just in case. Yeah, you can see the fresh welds and stuff along the interior here. Look at these engines. These look so gorgeous. These are really amazing. Look at that. Oh, wow. That is a pretty sweet look. Now, obviously, you can't... These plates here stop us seeing up inside the fuel injectors, because if those fuel injectors were visible, as I gather, that would be an ITAR violation, so they have to cover those up. Yeah, the main thing with the design is that they want to... they want to have it handle re-entry from space, from the moon, at escape velocity, right? Which means, and they want to be able to turn it around without having to replace all, like, an ablative system. Obviously, re-entry from lunar speeds has only ever been done with an ablative heat shield of some sort. This is some detail on those wings there. See, this, what I gather is this kind of folds up towards us. Now, people have said they see rivets on these in some of the close-ups, so there's some suggestion that these wings might actually be aluminium right now. What violation? ITAR, the International Traffic in Arms Regulations. It basically covers lots of secret sauce about rockets. And frankly, it's not saving anyone, but, the idea is that it stops other countries that haven't developed rocket technology from actually, stealing ideas and all that. Now, the thing about this... So, by the way, this is the old model, and I'm just going to bring this up to full screen. Can I bring it up to full screen? So this is... basically was built for me by Ollie Braun, who has a great store. It's his Buzz spaceship models. He does SpaceX models. And this model was what he did for me earlier this year, and it is now out of date. This is based on the design as we knew about it maybe 6 months ago. So still shiny stainless steel, but it has 7 engines in the bottom, right? The new design is going to have 3 engines in the core and 3 large vacuum engines around the outside. In the design of the time, right, these 2 bottom fins, those would actuate up and down, so that it would wave its wings up. These 2 would also actuate up and down, and the whole thing would enter through the atmosphere like that. So it would get some sort of aerodynamic lift, but once it's slowed down enough, it would actually just be going perpendicular, because the whole thing is, this is going to be a 1,200-ton spacecraft, and a 1,200-ton spacecraft understandably drops like a brick. So how are you going to make that thing slow down to subsonic speeds before landing? And that's it. It's going to fly at hypersonic speeds, and then once it gets close enough, it's basically going to belly flop down. And these, I think I feel my model breaking. These fins will control it actively, and when it gets close enough, they will fold up, and it will then fall into a rear descent pattern, and it will have 1 or 2 engines on the bottom to bring it down to a landing. I think 250 meters seems a little low for me, but it depends on how fast it's going. Incidentally, I also have a Starship Hopper design, right? Which this was outdated by the time I got it, because originally they had this big nose cone that they were building, and then it blew over in the wind, so they just flew it just like with this top bit cut off. It also has 3 engines on the bottom, and now then they only flew it with 1, because once they got rid of it, they were able to do that. So yeah, the front fell off, right? Yeah, well, it wasn't supposed to. The front fell off, right? So, and yeah, engineers said 2 were lighter than 3. So it still has, you'll notice, the fins. Oh, you know what? Now I look at it, right? This does have a fairing around this, but I think that's what the wings on the front are designed around. Look, it's going to have a nice front thing. I don't think it's going to have this giant windshield either, by the way. The heaviest soft landing from suborbital trajectory... Well, the heaviest soft landing by spacecraft from orbital speeds is, of course, the space shuttle, right? The stream is live. Here we go. Yes. Excellent. So let's switch to the full screen. Live. Now, here's a question. Do you want me to be super quiet and Elon to be full volume? Is that what you want? You want me to just shrink down and me to be just basically shutting up? Or do you want me to turn off the desktop audio and you guys can watch it all elsewhere? It's up to you. You can mix it. So you want it full screen. Loud enough to hurt our ears. Hold on, I'm going to make some adjustments to this windshield. Theater mode. Ah, there we go. Now I just need to make it fit. Still quite enjoying Test Shot Starfish. Nice! And interestingly enough, I'm going to meet somebody. I'm going to meet a neighbour's, family member who works at Blue Origin tomorrow. So I'm going to ask her what she thinks. Keep my voice off. Keep my voice off? Really? And milliseconds behind the audio. Could I turn off the desktop audio? Okay, I'll turn off the desktop audio. I don't know. I don't know, like, don't keep your voice off. Right, the question is, if I turn off the desktop audio, then you can watch Elon stream live in 2 separate windows. I think we'll just do both, right? And I'll just chat. And I'll be like, oh my god! You know, keep my glorious Scottish accent for all to be heard. Okay. Well, let me say, before we're ready to fly, it is time, I think, to raise our drinks. High elbow salute for the Starship, everyone. So I'm just gonna... I think I've got everything figured out. Hold on. It goes right... Oh, perfect. We've got this thing fitted. Yeah, I think you're right. Mobile viewers can only view one stream, so I don't mind if you go away and you want to watch the live stream, you can still also follow the chat. So that'll make more sense, right? The desktop audio is quite loud. I mean, I've got my stream, I thought, just about the same level, right? Hey, familiar, EJ. I think EJ and Das, they're still at TwitchCon, right? Are they doing anything at TwitchCon, or it is actually loud? You're a little quiet compared to the audio. How about I drop it down by about 6 decibels? Oh, man. Oh, EJ and Das were at the Miramar Air Show. They are still at TwitchCon. That's cool. We have Fleet Week next week, but if I am at STech next week, the ESA Open Day at the European Satellite Technology place. So if you are at that, please come by and say hi. I'm going to be meeting and greeting and doing all sorts of cool stuff. I'm going to be doing live shows. I'm going to be doing some Kerbal Space Program live. I'm going to be making some videos with their stuff. But yeah, I am going to be hanging out with the astronauts and with the other space scientists talking about getting to the moon, because of course this is the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11. And in fact, look, we have Apollo 11 right here in Lego format. Nice, huh? Fortunately, I've actually killed Neil Armstrong by knocking him over. Have I moved into the closet? Yes, no, we moved into an entirely new house. So I now have a recording studio with a door that closes. Isn't that luxury? I will not be at the Fleet Week Air Show because I'm going to be in the Netherlands. So I'm going to be flying to Europe instead. I wish I had a SpaceX shirt right now. Yeah, doors that close. That's not actually closed, but I could close that if I wanted to. Just think about the amount of luxury that gives. It's in Nurvik, yes. Is that how I say it? Nurvik? You have a Tesla sweatshirt. I think it's funny. I don't actually have many like, I see everyone walking around with, like, NASA logos on their shirts and everything, trying to be super cool, and yeah, I don't have any of that gear. Jason Tyler DeFox, yes, I have met Brian May. We met backstage at a gig in San Jose a few years ago. It was just before Asteroid Day, and it was, yeah, fabulous. It was really good. Make a note of the Soyuz capsule there behind the... I've seen several Soyuz. Air Terranian, have you seen my video where I looked inside one of the first generation Soyuz capsules? There's only like... there's not very many of those in the world, but this was an OKB class. So, you know, you get to see the old style clockwork control panel and everything. You just sent the decision or for your Bachelor in Aeronautical Engineering to the testing committee. Congratulations! Is this our SpaceX's? I am surprised there haven't been many SpaceX's videos made, but Rule 32 says that there has to be. I was not invited to the presentation, but here's the thing. I have a day job, and a lot of the people that were invited, those are the people that have been going to Boca Chica and taking photos and documenting this whole thing. So I never expected to get an invite. I would have loved to, but yeah, my wife would have hated it. Right? That's the deal. So no, I'm fine. I've got a lot going on. What is what? What is what? What? You've seen some Falcon on Falcon? Tim Dodd lives in Boca Chica now? Really? Did you see my girl-shaped Kerbal spaceship on Staram? Oh, what is SpaceX's? SpaceX's is... I wanted to... Many years ago, I was asked to create a user account for a bulletin board, and it was said that I should pick a unique username that no one else will pick. And so I wanted to use the word SpaceX's, which is a fancy name for a conjunction or an alignment of planets. But I was dumb, and I spelled it completely wrong. I literally just put a bunch of letters together, and that became my name. And for those wondering about what DJ S&M is, that's my Twitter handle, I was a DJ, Scott Manley, and someone started calling me DJ S&M, that started going on the flyer, so now that's DJ S&M. I'm not anything to do with what I do at home. In my privacy of my own room, it was just a fun little name. Although, you know, I do have one of these, you know. I should open this up. Why is this not being opened? Maybe I'll just keep it. Look, it's Borderlands. Yeah, that's about as S&M as I get. Yeah, DJ Scott Manley. Why not Scott Manley for Twitch? Because I don't know why not Scott Manley. Have I played Borderlands 3? Yes, I have. Me and Tori Bruno and a bunch of other Rocket people are fans of Borderlands 3. Not that I played with him, I just thought it was funny that Tori Bruno was like, oh yeah, I'm taking the whole weekend to play that game. And Elon is like, he's telling us that he never completed Fallout 4 because of everything. I'm getting excited. Is anyone excited? Have I played everything? Yes, I have. I think everything's a fantabulous little, you know, time waster, I guess. Yes, we're excited. I'm so excited. I just can't hide it. Are you excited because you want to see some ULA rockets? Look at this. It's an Atlas V. Doesn't that make you excited? Look at how not shiny that is. Just think about it. That has got hydrogen inside it. Liquid hydrogen. Right? But you know what? You know what's got even more liquid hydrogen? Right? Is the Delta 4. That's all liquid hydrogen and oxygen. Think about that. See, isn't that sexy? I mean, who cares about Starship, right? Right? Yeah, okay. All around the Stactus. The stalker chased the bandit. Yes, Pop goes the bandit. Yes. ULA didn't buy your desks. You don't like them anymore. Oh, What did you design desks for Blue Origin, or is that? No, I'm forgetting. Havazik, I'm glad to have you here. This is just me sitting out and chilling. Please, this is a good time for you guys to get a beverage and chill out, because what else are we gonna do? Do I work for SpaceX now? No, I still work for Apple. Still working for Apple, did not get fired. No, I'm still totally committed to Apple. It's a fabulous company. And, you know, it's great. Get to write code and then get to do my hobbies when I have some spare time. You did design them for Blue Origin, but they didn't buy them either. That's a shame. Yeah, I totally work at Apple. I write code, and that's all I can really say. My day has been great. I have been working on a cat enclosure downstairs, which, if you are technical and you know all about the construction of facilities for cats, some people refer to these as a catio. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and put some more light on me. Give me a second. And this is where I have to be very careful to make sure I don't knock my shelves over. I have this here, and the problem is I can't put a light in front of me, but if I put the light there, it's just out of shot. Oh, it's just in shot. Let me move the trash can. Let me move it forwards. There, so we should get some... There, some light is reflecting off the wall. Isn't that great? Science! Now you can see how ugly I am. Yeah, I'm not doing any work streams. So I'm reflecting actually off of I love this tune, by the way. This is my favorite tune by SpaceX, by Test Shot Starfish. I would totally like put some more beats on this and play it. Like play it as a DJ. I told that Test Shot Starfish that they should absolutely be making a vinyl version. I hope they never stop using... I'm gonna play this tune really loud because it's awesome. I can hear people talking in the background. I love the Eve soundtrack, yeah. Jeremy on your Discord says the stream is on Elon time. It's totally on Elon time, and that's fine. The Eve soundtrack is great, and it's all there. It's so free. I'm not drunk at all. As I said, I've been working very hard in the yard on the catio, which is an enclosure. So the cats are going to have a kitty door that gets them into a crawl space underneath the house, and then that'll be all like a cool little play area. And then they'll go out and they'll be in a space underneath the deck that's all kind of, caged in, so they can hang out and everything. The left side of the A in SpaceX flew off. What? What are you talking? Yes, that's right. Obviously the A. Yeah, is that a branding change? No, they've had that logo for a long time. Why cage the cats in? Because we live in the countryside and we have coyotes. And occasionally the coyotes leave torn up animals like squirrels and owls and things. So, yeah. The A was the COPV, totally. This track is called Approaching Dragon. Coyotes are faster than roadrunners. Really? They just run away from me, though. I tell you what, if you ever move to the countryside, first thing you should buy is a giant, like, battery-powered spotlight that, you can shoot like a laser. Because you can see everything. You hear a rustle in the bushes, shine, it's like, oh, it's only a squirrel. Do you know the game Surviving Mars? Yeah, I was one of the first, I played it in an early presentation for it. It was it was a great day. I think that the game has improved a lot from its initial release. You could totally buy a gun, but you're more likely to just get dead, rotting things in your yard. It's much better to shine a light on something rustling in the bushes rather than shoot it. No, I think this is totally a Starship update. I mean, maybe Maezawa... Does anyone know if Yasuaki Maezawa is going to be in town? Yeah, the spotlight that I have actually has big heat sinks around the LED cluster because it gets so hot. And if you run it at full power, it'll turn to a low power mode, which is only half as bright after like 10 minutes. Starship is not already done. The exterior is mostly done, right? There is still work to be done, and those engines still need to be built. They still need to be tested and modified, and they need the space for the vacuum engines. The vacuum engines are still in development at this time. So the vacuum engines are going to have giant bells. And according to Elon, he sort of said, oh yeah, we should use dual bell designs, which is kind of cool that he actually talked about that, since I think the dual bell design was entirely accidental. Like, it was, a bunch of people saw these mock-ups that were stuck on the thing, and then we all said, oh, that could be a dual bell engine, maybe it's like a vacuum optimized engine that can also work at near ground level, at sea level. The vacuum engines would have giant vacuums. Yes, exactly. SpaceX has not officially acknowledged any RUD or engine-rich exhaust, I think is the best term. So SpaceX has said the test was a complete success, but not everyone agrees that it's a complete success. Would I accept a job at SpaceX for the same salary, same job? Probably not, because I don't think I could do the hours anymore. My wife would be very unhappy. Besides, there's a certain benefit to having a day job and a hobby which are entirely separate. If I started working at SpaceX, I couldn't do like I couldn't do this, right? I couldn't cover SpaceX because now I'd have internal like secret stuff. Besides, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a rocket scientist, I'm a guy that writes, oh, it's going away! Woo! Yes! Yeah, oh, look at it! Drone footage! Look at that! Oh man, in the tent. Lights, camera, sexy, awesome, shiny, chrome. Look at that thing. I tell you, you know, for all the people that say it looks smashed together. Oh look, they get a Falcon 1 there!
It's quite windy here. It's tied down well though.
Bit windy.
I think I actually wasn't expecting it to be this windy. Hopefully you can actually hear what I'm saying.
Yeah. Who could have anticipated,
okay, great. Huh? This is I think the most inspiring thing that I've ever seen, and I'd just like to thank the SpaceX team and the suppliers and the people of Boca Chica and Brownsville. Thank you for your support, and just like, wow, what an incredible job by such a great team to build this incredible vehicle. So it's like,
I guess the locals coming in on force. Just look at that tiny thing there. That must be so much closer to the camera.
I'm just so proud to work with such a great team, and it's really ripping here, by the way. If you're watching this online, it is really windy.
It's windy here, Elon.
So, the point of this presentation and this event is really there are two elements to it. One is to inspire the public, get people excited about our future in space,
full of wonder and possibility,
and get people fired up about the future.
Out among the stars.
There are so many things to worry about, so many things to be concerned about. There are many troubles in the world, of course, and these are important, and we need to solve them. But we also need things that make us excited to be alive, that make us glad to wake up in the morning and be fired up about the future and think, yeah, the future is going to be great. You know, and this space exploration is one of those things. And becoming a spacefaring civilization, being out there among the stars, this is one of the things that I know makes me glad to be alive. I think it makes many people glad to be alive. It's one of the best things.
The future I want.
And this really, we're faced with a choice. Which future do you want? Do you want the future where we become a spacefaring civilization and are in many worlds and are out there among the stars, or one where we are forever confined to Earth? And I say it is the first. And I hope you agree with me.
He practiced that line, I can tell.
So what the question? The critical breakthrough that's needed for us to become a spacefaring civilization is to make space travel like air travel. So with air travel, when you fly a plane, you fly that plane many times. I mean, the risk of stating the obvious, really almost any mode of transport, whether it's a plane, a car, a horse, a bicycle, is reusable. You use that mode of transport many times. And if you had to get a new plane every time you flew somewhere, and even have 2 planes for a return journey, very few people could afford to fly. Or if you could use a car only once, very few people could afford to drive a car. So the critical breakthrough that's necessary is a rapidly reusable orbital rocket. This is basically the holy grail of space, and the fundamental thing that's required. And it is a very hard thing to do. It's only barely possible with the physics of Earth. I mean, if Earth's gravity was a little heavier, it would be impossible.
Oh yeah, that
and
Falcon
if
1
Earth's
is
gravity
wobbling.
was a little lighter, it would be quite easy. So we're really right on the cusp of what is physically possible. So in order to create a rapidly reusable rocket and fully reusable orbital rocket, you have to have engines that have incredibly high specific impulse, that essentially are extremely efficient. You need to have a structure that is also incredibly mass efficient. And then that all needs to come back to the launch pad and be able to be refilled with propellant and flown again very quickly, just like an aircraft. So it's just because of the physics of Earth being quite a deep gravity well and having quite a thick atmosphere. This is a tough but not impossible thing. But it is the most fundamental thing. So with SpaceX, we started out 17 years ago, and the first rocket we designed was the Falcon 1, which was that guy right there.
Tiny!
So,
look at it!
Yeah.
Hey, Quadrant Atoll! Look at that. We never got to see the Kestrel engine after that.
Stage separation.
Beautiful.
Separation confirmed.
I mean, here's the thing. The Falcon 1 engine was
so
tiny.
Falcon 1, we thought, yeah.
And then they scaled it
Falcon
up
1.
to become Falcon 9 engine.
I mean, we started off, we were very naive. In fact, the reason it's September 28th was September. This is the 11th anniversary of the first time SpaceX reached orbit. So 11 years ago today,
They were
SpaceX
betting the
made
company
orbit
on
for the first
this.
time.
Right? They were betting the company on this. Like, if they had failed, they would have been out of business.
It was our 4th launch, and if that launch had not succeeded, SpaceX, that would have been the end of SpaceX. That was all. I'd run out of money. There were no more investors, and that would have been it. So if that 4th launch had not succeeded, that would have been curtains. But fortunately, fate smiled on us that day, and we made it to orbit. And I have great respect for anyone who makes it to orbit. That was a hard thing.
Wow, he's extra twitchy today.
We were very naive, obviously very naive on many levels back then, because we did actually try to recover the first stage. So the first stage had a parachute on it, and we thought, okay, we'll just pop the parachute when it comes back into the atmosphere, and then it'll land somewhere in the ocean. We'll go fish it out of the ocean with a boat. This does not work. So, and I actually remember getting mad at the parachute supplier. Like, yeah, your parachute didn't work. I'm like, no, it wasn't their fault. When the rocket comes in from space, it's coming in. That first stage is coming in like, Mach 10 to 12, and it hits the atmosphere like it's a concrete wall, and boom. So
it hits plasma
you actually have
knives.
to orient the rocket carefully. You have to have aerodynamic surfaces. You have to do an entry burn to slow it down. You've got to guide it through the atmosphere, and then do a propulsive landing. This
Nice
took
drone
us
shot.
many attempts, and we actually did like a video of all.
Look,
of
the
blooper
Falcon
reel of
1
all the
right
times we
there
failed,
for
which was a lot.
comparison
I
for a
think it
better
might have taken us
scale.
like 14 attempts or something before we finally successfully landed the rocket. So. So if we go on to the next slide, we can take a look at This is Grasshopper. That's actually Falcon
This is
9.
where I suddenly
It's hard
realized
to
that
tell the
SpaceX
scale,
were really doing
but
cool
that's
stuff.
a Falcon 9 size booster with one engine and big legs with giant shock absorbers, because we didn't know what the heck we were doing. Now, amazingly, Grasshopper had zero crashes. Grasshopper is still alive.
Yeah. Note the guy with the helmet, the cowboy, sitting on the bottom. This was cool. I remember this drone shot, like the drone being above it was stunning. And the cows.
The cows are confused.
This was them just figuring out how to fly a rocket, right? On, you know, slowly and make it descend carefully. There's no grid fins on this either. That flame there is because the gas generator exhaust caught fire, right? Because it's fuel rich and hot.
Yeah.
That was pretty special.
So that was they have Falcon 1. What you saw there was a Falcon 9 size vehicle, and then what's really kind of hard to grasp at a visceral level is that this giant ship will do the same thing that Grasshopper did. So this thing is going to take off, fly to 65,000 feet, about 20 kilometers.
Wow. Okay, that's what I said.
In about 1 to 2 months. So that giant thing is really gonna be pretty epic to see that thing take off and come back. And then, hopefully, yeah.
You can see the drone flying around there. See it? It's going to come out the other side here in a second.
Yeah.
There it goes.
Wow.
Drone. There. Zippy drone.
So now this is a quite radical. I'll talk about it later in the presentation. This is a quite a new approach to controlling a rocket. Much more akin to a skydiver than a plane. But I'll talk about that later. So going from Falcon 1 to Falcon 9 to Falcon Heavy, which we launched. Actually, the first launch of Falcon Heavy was only February of last year.
It's crazy.
So it's only been about 1.5 years since the first Falcon Heavy launch, when we did 2 side-by-side booster landings. And I always like.
By the way, I noticed when anyone has iPhones. Oh yeah, this is the great video.
It's a god-awful small
Full volume.
To the girl with the mousy hair, but her mommy is yelling no, and her daddy has told her to go, but her friend is nowhere to be seen. Now she walks through her sunken dream to the seat with the clearest view, and she's hooked to the silver screen. But the film is a sad thing for she's lived it 10 times or more. She could spit in the eyes of fools as they ask her to focus on sailors fighting in the dance hall. Oh man, look at those cavemen go. It's the freakiest show. Take a look at the low man beating up the wrong guy. Oh man, wonder if you'll ever know who's in the best-selling show. Is there life on Mars?
Press F to Santa Claus. Still brings tears to my eyes. Oh. Made on Earth by humans. Oh my god. Sorry. Totally didn't cry. Totally didn't cry. Mr. Manley's not crying.
Yeah, I never thought that would happen, actually. Glad that it did. Yeah.
I'm glad it did as well.
Yeah, it's funny, like the some people wonder like, why do we have the Roadster with the astronaut, Starman? And it actually just came from a discussion of my friend Jonas. I was at his kitchen, and I was like, normally when they do a rocket launch, they launch a rocket concrete, but that doesn't sound very inspiring. So, what do you think the most sort of fun thing is that we could launch? And he was like, well, why don't you just launch a Tesla? And that's a great idea.
So he launched his Tesla.
And then another friend of mine, she said, why don't you put a tiny Tesla on the dashboard? So we put a tiny Tesla on the dashboard with a tiny Starman in the tiny Tesla.
This is how Elon plans things, right?
They were like, what the heck is this? So, just want
I think
to
he's
capture
drunk
imagination, get people excited
on
about
excitement.
Space. So let's see, Starship. So this is, you can really see it right there, obviously. There's the picture, more rendering. It's about 50 meters.
New rendering!
Sort of 165 feet or so.
50-ton return payload.
Yeah,
So if you take 150 tons of people into space, you can only bring 1/3 of them home.
I noticed we have an error in our ship dry mass here. My apologies. I wish it was 85 tons.
Yeah, it's more like 200 right now.
The ship dry mass would be approximately 120 tons.
Okay.
The initial Mark 1 prototype is closer to 200 tons, and in series production, I think it'll probably be about 120 tons. If we get really lucky, it might get down to 110. 99 would be super epic.
This is Elon again.
But in terms of its usefulness, it'll be able to do about 150 tons with full reusability to orbit and back. So this is a very big number for full reusability.
It's basically Apollo Saturn V. That's what Saturn V did.
Over 100 tons, but I think there's a clear path to 150 tons. And the cost of a fully reusable system is basically the cost of the propellant, which is mostly oxygen. This is 3.5 tons of oxygen for every 1 ton of fuel.
Yeah,
So
for every 1 ton of methane.
Of this architecture over the Falcon architecture is that we actually use more oxygen per unit of fuel rather than less. So Merlin or the Falcon architecture is about 2.5 tons of oxygen for every 1 ton of fuel. This is 3.5 tons of oxygen for every 1 ton of fuel. So when this ascends, it's really mostly liquid oxygen.
So it's environmentally friendly, right?
When you get to vacuum, there's no air, basically.
No kidding!
Yeah.
New beer, by the way.
The next slide. So, yeah. So earlier I was talking about how Starship enters and how it's controlled.
Oh, that's right. So this is the
quite
re-entry.
Different from anything else. It's really falling, and so we're doing a controlled fall. So with a rocket, you're actually trying to brake, as opposed to you're trying to create drag instead of lift. It's really the opposite of an aircraft. You want the most amount of drag that you can produce. And you want some lift, especially when you're in the upper atmosphere, mostly so that you can control.
So when does it flip for landing?
Rate. You want enough lift to keep yourself high in the low density portion of the atmosphere, so you can burn off velocity, and then
stops.
So you want, but then basically it goes like if this is the Earth, it goes at about a 60 degree. My hand is the rocket. It's going at about 60 degrees. So when in orbit, you're actually going at around 25 times the speed of sound, horizontal to the ground. So this is a very important concept that is counterintuitive to our normal daily life. Being in orbit, being in 0G, is not about altitude. It's about velocity. How fast are you going horizontally? This doesn't. So when something's in orbit, it's zooming around the Earth so fast that the outward radial acceleration is equal to the inward acceleration of gravity. And then you have zero gravity. This is why you actually have zero gravity. The space station.
Elon's quick,
the space station is stationary.
Lesson on orbital mechanics.
The world at 25 times the speed of sound, or about 17,000 miles an hour. It always looks stationary in the pictures. And since there's no air, you don't have to have an aerodynamic structure. So you can be a totally crazy structure that doesn't look like it should be able to go 25 times the speed of sound, but it does. And you can only feel acceleration. You can't feel velocity. So people sometimes like to wonder, what does it feel like to go?
That's a
25
great
times
way
the
of
speed
saying
sound?
things,
It feels
actually.
like nothing. Only accelerating to there feels like something. So Starship is coming in. If this platform is the Earth, it's coming in at hypersonic velocity like this.
I don't think Elon could
around
lose
a
this
60-degree
crowd.
angle. So it comes like this, and then starts falling, and then just falls like a skydiver, and it's just controlling itself, and then it turns and lands like that.
There.
So
That's how it does it. Now do it in Kerbal Space Program.
And then you can get a sense for it. This is much better.
Here,
you
look at the altitude at which that happens. That's like 1,000 feet.
Look better with the hand? Okay.
And notice how the rear
But it
fins
looks
folded
lovely to
away.
see
I
that thing
totally
there.
called it.
Yeah. That'd be crazy. Wow.
Notice they intentionally folded the rear fins in,
So-
right?
Cool. So let's see. Talking about the Raptor engine. So the ship will have a total of 6 engines, 3 of the sea level variety of Raptor, and those are actually on the rocket right now. So we have
in the middle.
3 sea level. In fact, that's a picture of just inside that skirt. That's what it looks like. So we've got the 3 sea level Raptor engines.
Gorgeous.
They take gimbal, which means that the whole engine moves. So the way a rocket steers is by moving the entire engine. So whereas an aircraft engine is static and you move by moving like the control surfaces like the ailerons and rudder and elevator and flaps, the rocket, when the engines are powered, you move the entire engine to steer it. But so the Starship will have 3 sea level engines that move up to about 15 degrees angle, and 3 vacuum engines that are optimized for efficiency that will not move. So they will be just fixed in place, and that allows us to have the biggest bell nozzle for the vacuum Raptor engines. Aspirationally, the target is a 380-second ISP for the vacuum engine. This is a very, in sort of.
If they get
space
that, I'll
terms,
be
this is
impressed.
Really a great number, and even for the steel engines to get over a 350-second ISP is also really great. So, actually, yeah, sorry, I'm looking at the slide view and you're not. So that's what I meant by it looks like that on the inside. Sorry, go back one slide. That's the inside of the Starship right now. So that's what it looks like from the base.
And so the vacuum
Alright.
engines would be
Then heat
here
shield.
on each side. Okay, heat shield.
So
This is the key thing.
we've gone through various iterations of heat shield. There's a lot of ways to skin the cat here. Ultimately, we decided to have heat shield hexagonal tiles, ceramic tiles that are basically like a tiny glass vermicelli at a microstructure level.
Vermicelli. huh?
So very, very light, but very crack resistant. Essentially glass tiles, and they're because Starship is a steel construction. Like at first it feels like, oh, it's steel. Does that mean it's heavy? No, actually it's the lightest construction. Steel is the best thing. I think the best thing about best design decision on this whole thing is a 301 stainless steel.
It better be.
At cryogenic temperatures, a 301 stainless actually has about the same effective strength as an advanced composite or aluminum lithium. Unlike most steels, which get brittle at low temperature, 301 stainless gets much stronger. And if it's in the extra hot condition, meaning it's cold rolled to extra hot condition, it also gets way stronger. So its strength to weight ratio at cryogenic temperatures is equivalent or even perhaps slightly better than advanced composites or aluminum lithium. So this is not well appreciated, because if you just look at the materials manual and say, like, what is the strength of stainless steel, it looks much weaker than it is. You say, what is the strength at cryogenic temperature? Oh, much stronger. Or, at very low temperature, almost twice as strong. That's when it becomes better than carbon fiber or aluminum lithium. And there's another benefit. It also has a high melting temperature. So for a reusable ship, you're coming in like a meteor. You want something that does not melt at a low temperature. You want something that melts at a high temperature. And this is where steel is extremely good as well. So it's, steel has a melting temperature around sort of 1,500 degrees centigrade, whereas aluminum, maybe 300 or 400 degrees. And same thing for carbon fiber, and that's really pushing it.
Carbon fiber even is.
Having that much higher melting temperature means that you don't need any shielding on the leeward side of the ship when it comes in for entry. And the shielding you need on the windward side, the hot side, is massively reduced because the thickness of the tile is actually, for a reusable system, is dependent on what back shell temperature, like how hot does the back of the tile that interfaces with the airframe get. And because the steel can take a much higher temperature, your heat shield, even on the windward side, is much lighter. The net effect is that a 301 stainless steel rocket is actually the lightest possible reusable architecture.
This is where it's black magic, because no one expected this.
The carbon fiber we were using was $130 a ton. The steel is $2,500 a ton. Sorry,
22.
Yeah, 25.
He's doing the math.
$130,000 a ton versus $2,500
Yes.
a ton. That makes more sense.
That's
so it's $130,000 a ton for the carbon fiber.
like 2% of the cost.
And $2,500 a ton for the steel. So the steel is about 2% of the cost of the carbon fiber. So it's a good thing we changed from carbon fiber to steel, by far.
And it looks gorgeous. Carbon fiber would be cool, but stainless steel looks sci-fi.
Very easy to weld stainless steel. The evidence being that we welded it outdoors without a factory. So
yes, and that is the next crazy thing, right? They were able to do it
great
outside.
skills by the team, with carbon fiber, this is impossible. With aluminum lithium, also impossible. But steel is is easy to weld, and it is resilient to the elements. And also, actually, as talking with Austin earlier, he was saying, like, on Mars, you can like cut that up, you can weld it, you can modify it, no problem. Yeah, that's a good point.
What I wonder
you're out there
is how good the welds are.
You want something that you can modify, that you can cut up and use for other things. That's like for sure a great thing. So anyway, steel. Obviously, I'm in love with steel. It's time had to say it. So great. So let's see. Going on to the booster.
Okay, super heavy time. Stop. Heavy time.
So the booster is
37.
designed to take up to 37 Raptor engines. I'm not sure if we'll go that high, but you can really have 31. I think like the minimum number you'd want is maybe around 24. But the booster is designed to be able to take multiple engines out. So
it still has grid fins.
Add or subtract engines as you'd like. You basically just need a lot of force pushing up.
3,300
Over
tons
time, I think
propellant.
You probably want around a 7,500 ton force rocket, which is about twice the thrust of a Saturn V, a little more than twice the thrust.
The fuel in this weighs more than the Saturn V.
On a roughly 5,000 ton gross liftoff mass. So for roughly 1.5 thrust to weight. For a reusable rocket, you actually want a high thrust to weight rather than with an expendable rocket where you want a low thrust to weight. Because any thrust to weight below 1 is not useful. Like if you have less thrust than your weight, you don't move. So you actually want a high thrust to weight for a reusable rocket. This is a very important design optimization change. So that's why I think more engines is probably good. and getting up to around 7,500 tons over time, and a 1.5 thrust to weight ratio, or more.
Yeah,
So-
more engines
and
than...
we think we're probably going to adjust the grid fin design to be kind of like more of like a diamond shape. It looks cooler. It works better too. And then the rear fins are actually just legs, so they're not needed for stabilization or guidance. They're essentially there for legs. All right, so let's go into.
So the legs don't fold away on this Falk Super Heavy by the looks of things.
This is a Raptor firing.
Oh, beautiful! Look at... Oh my goodness. Oh, sexy, sexy Mach diamonds there. Oh, wow. I salute you with the high elbow salute. Oh, wow. Look at the definition of those shock patterns there. That's so gorgeous. And this is like a long burn as well. I wonder what those flashes are. Are those like bits of the, nozzle melting off as they're, as it's a new engine? Because I'm not sure what those yellow flashes should be. And they're shut down. Wow.
All right, and then obviously we had a Raptor fire on the Starhopper.
Raptor fire! I told you it caught fire, right?
And it's kind of hard to see to appreciate scale, but it's the same diameter as Starship, and obviously it's just right over there. So
look at
it's
it
kinda
go.
hard
Now
to tell
watch,
if
it's
the
going to
size of a
change
trash can
yellow.
Or how big it is. But it's about the body diameter is about 9 meters or 30 feet, not including the leg span.
So like they start having a leak, I think, and that catches fire, and then there's like it turns orange. It's not just dust. It also does this cool roll to like demonstrate they had control of the rotation with the RCS. But I thought it was dust originally, and then it pointed out that the yellow started right at the tip of the nozzle. You see the fire starting, and then the whole thing. That's engine-rich exhaust, right? And then it drops the last 5 feet or so, I think. And then, yeah, a bit falls off and bounces away, and it's, like, over in this direction.
Yeah.
Oh, look, Millennium Falcon on the
Just to
slide!
give you a sense of size.
There we go!
So the little pixels there, little pixels are a human. And then there's the hopper next to it, the Millennium Falcon, for comparison.
Oh, actually, I think I have a
Then
Millennium
Starship,
Falcon
which
to
is
that
what you
scale.
see before you. And then that's what will look like with the full stack, which is almost 2.5 times as tall as this vehicle.
It's going to be about 7 meters taller than the Saturn V, right? And 5,000 tons. And
This
everything
simulation
will
give you a
refly.
sense of the scale of things.
Ooh, augmented reality. This is the drone flying. Look at. So this includes the flame diverter. So the whole thing's going to be 30 meters up, so that the landing part, so the launch pad's higher up, because they need to get rid of all that thrust. Yeah, it's got a little milk
It
stool.
reminds me of the scene from Spaceballs.
Yes, Elon's cool. And then they have this giant tower. Yes, they need more grid fins because it's a bigger rocket. Okay, what else do we see? Oh, we get another video. I love how they're showing Boca Chica. Oh man, that is sexy. Crew is inverted during launch so they can see the ground. stage separation and flip and burn. And single engine there. I think they would use a cluster of engines for the flyback initially. Three-engine landing, so it has to be less than 600 tons on landing. And now from there, it could refuel. There, they're going to have, as they say, butt sex, I think is the term.
This is
They're going to dock.
Orbital refilling is extremely important for getting to Mars and getting to the moon. Or establishing a city, or...
Notice that they are flipped upside down during the docking. So they have now implanted their seed in each other, or one has implanted their fuel in the other, and that one will go to fertile grounds. They are using its 3 vacuum engines only, right? Not the core engines. The vacuum engines are the ones they use in space.
Alright. To Mars.
To Mars! So they have the control thrusters. We're still not sure what the control thrusters are.
Orbital launcher or rocket is, it says a rapidly reusable rocket is required for alliteration. For getting a breakthrough in cost of access to space, that you don't throw the rockets away every flight. But another key step is refilling on orbit, so that the Starship can get to orbit with, let's say, 150 tons of payload for the moon or Mars or beyond, and then it can get tankered to fill up its propellant tanks, and so that it can depart from low Earth orbit with 1,200 tons of propellant. This is a very big thing, so that your delta velocity is enough to transport
scale.
literally 150 tons to the surface of the moon or Mars. With full reusability and orbital refilling, which is essentially, the orbital refilling is actually a simplified version of what SpaceX does in docking with the space station. So it's actually harder to dock with the space station than it is to do orbital refilling. But in practicing in docking with the space station, SpaceX has also learned how to rendezvous and dock in orbit in a complex environment. So this is one of the other critical pieces of the puzzle.
I don't know if they've even looked at the orbital
to
docking for
establish
real.
A base on the moon and Mars, a city ultimately. And yeah, so those are the critical ingredients. So we think it would be very exciting to have a base on the moon, even if it's just a science base. That we have, for example, we have a base at Antarctica. Many countries have bases in Antarctica for science research, and this would be an incredible area of research. So whether or not people want to live on the moon, there's definitely a lot of science to be done.
Just the one on the pad here.
And I think it's close as well. So that would be quite exciting to do. And then, of course, we can go to other places in the solar system, like Saturn. But the critical thing that we need to focus on, I think, is the fastest path to a self-sustaining city on Mars. This is the fundamental thing.
That's so sexy. Sexy Mars people. Saturn for Titan.
As far as we know, we are the only consciousness or the only life that's out there. There might be other life, but we've seen no signs of it. People often ask me, what do you know about the aliens and that? I'm like, man, I tell you, I'm pretty sure I'd know. If there were aliens. I have not seen any sign of aliens. So they're like, well, is the military hiding aliens in Area 51 or something? That's a popular meme.
Oh my God.
Well, let me tell you, the fastest way to increase defense funding would be to bring out, like, hey, we found an alien. People are like, more money for defense, definitely. This is guaranteed. They would try that would be like on display in 2 seconds. So, the reality is, as far as we know, this is the only place, at least in this part of the galaxy or in the Milky Way, where there is consciousness. And it's taken a long time for us to get to this point. You know, according to the geological records, Earth's been around for about 4.5 billion years, although it was mostly molten magma for about 500 million years. So, but still, several billion years with at least bacterial life and multicellular life for several hundred million years. But here's the interesting part: like the sun is gradually getting hotter and bigger, and over time, even in the absence of global warming, man-made stuff, the sun will expand and it will overheat the Earth. My guess is probably, this is on human timescales, this is a long time, but there's only several 100 million years left. That's all. That's all we got.
Billion years at best.
But thought of from an evolutionary standpoint, basically, if it took an extra 10% longer for conscious life to evolve on Earth, it wouldn't evolve at all.
Yep.
Because it would have been incinerated by the sun.
Damn right.
So what I'm saying is that it appears that consciousness is a very rare and precious thing, and we should take whatever steps we can to preserve the light of consciousness. And the window has been open. Only now, after 4.5 billion years, is that window open. That's a long time to wait, and it might not stay open for long. I'm pretty optimistic by nature, but there's some chance that window will not be open for long. And I think we should become a multi-planet civilization while that window is open. And if we do, I think the probable outcome for Earth is even better, because then Mars could help Earth one day. And so I think we should really do our very best to become a multi-planet species and to extend consciousness beyond Earth. And we should do it now.
Yes! Yes, we should! That's right. No, I'm serious. Like, I'm gonna say he's obviously walking off stage, but like, my whole thing is that human race, we are alive, we are conscious, we need to stay that way, and we need to do everything that it takes to preserve this light of consciousness in the universe, right? And yes, we will figure out how to get to other planets. We will exploit their resources. We will spread ourselves, and maybe then we can figure out how to get to other stars. And maybe eventually we go to other galaxies. And ultimately, some point, we're trying to figure out how to deal with the heat death of the universe. But one problem at a time. So yeah, this is Starship. I mean, basically, he didn't tell us anything new there. He gave us some masses. He gave us some numbers in terms of the engine performance, which I'm very happy about. So I'm going to actually take this down a bit. I think it's cool he didn't point at Jupiter, by the way, because the obvious places to go in the solar system are Mars and Titan, right? I mean, I'm still highly skeptical as to whether this thing will work. But Elon, they've done the math, and I can't find any obvious flaws. My big question is this welding good enough? Will they come up with a new, once they go to the orbital, once they go beyond prototypes, will they move this into a factory and figure out how to make perfect, seamless welds on this thing, right? The Earth sustainability is a huge thing because, for all the fact that, yes, Earth will be destroyed or Earth's atmosphere will be destroyed in 1 billion years, we would prefer that we not lose 100 million years of that because of, human-driven global warming or whatever. But we can solve all these problems simultaneously, each to his own. Just because we're trying to solve one problem doesn't mean you have to stop solving other problems, right? I don't think that nuking Mars is a legitimate concept, but hey, you know, maybe there's other things. I'm definitely... No, I'm excited. I just think that this is his way of going out and trying to solve a problem that he thinks needs to be solved that governments aren't interested in solving. Mars domes, I would be totally fine with domes on Mars.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be commencing a Q&A session in just 5 minutes.
Oh, there's going to be a Q&A session!
Hang tight.
Okay, so we're going to hang tight. I'm going to say, by the way, that that lunar base, by the way, that totally reminded me of Burning Man, right? Since, if you remember, during his first presentation, he had somebody asking him how he would deal with all the poop on Burning Man, right? Does it really make sense to colonize other planets instead of directly go for generational? No, absolutely. You gotta go to other planets. You gotta figure out how to do other planets. To do interstellar travel, you really need to have an interplanetary infrastructure set up, right? Please don't run away! Oh god, it's famous. His IAF or whatever presentation had the worst set of questions ever. Right? I mean, so... Yeah, Saturn is also a good place to get various interesting helium isotopes. Jupiter's too deep a gravity well. Yeah, construction yard and low gravity, all these things. I think this Q&A is going to be the hardcore nerds. I think there's going to be a lot of evasion, and I think there will be a few people that ask really incisive questions that actually reveal stuff that they shouldn't. Why would governments care for off-planet civilizations? How can they collect taxes from that far away? Listen, if America doesn't take control of the moon, the Russians will, right? Or the Chinese will. Like, seriously, it's... Once it starts happening, once one country actually really legitimately puts people on the moon, there will be, like, beyond, obviously, Apollo 11 was a huge reach. But now the technology is getting better and more countries have it. There's going to be a real moon race going on, right? And if China puts people on the moon, you can bet the US and Russia are going to push harder to make it happen. I think Space Race Mark II is going to be a real space race to the moon, right? The original space race, frankly, was Russia winning everything and then America going to the moon and saying, we won. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the questions, to be honest. And yes, oh my god, look at this thing. Look at the shine on it. Like, I'm very worried about all these welds. I am with everybody that says that cannot survive hypersonic flight. But people have been welding stainless steel for decades. They know how to do this. They do it every day. And water tanks, let me tell you, if a water tank breaks, it is a dangerous event, right? It's not like this is some sort of special safety regime that they've never had to do, right? If you're building a water tank, then it's just as important that it doesn't break in flight. Or, yeah, not in flight. Break under pressure. Should I get another beer, or should I just... Should I run and get another beer? What do you think? More beer? More beer? Yes? Beer? Another beer. Okay. I'm going to run to the fridge, which is over there. I'm going to leave the music running. Be right back. Okay, we are properly beered up. By the way, just for those who were not paying attention, the first thing I drank was actually a cider called Space. Right? So this is like Ace cider, but it was a space blood orange cider. This is the Dogfish Head Sea Quench Ale, which I'm currently drinking. It's kind of limey. And it is a collaboration with the National Aquarium. Isn't that nice? And what I'm going to do next is the Sonoma Tart. Right, now I'm in Marin County, but I will, obviously that's next door to Sonoma. Your fun, interesting thing about living in Marin is you go a few exits up on the highway, and that's Lucas Valley Road, and that leads to Skywalker Ranch. There's restaurants around here where you can actually get Skywalker wine with your dinner, right? Skywalker is like a real thing up here. It's not just a name on Star Wars. Have you heard of it? Yes! No, Max and Max 123, I've actually done a catalogue of every single known asteroid to try to find which asteroids can be diverted to hit Mars. And the best I've found is an object which has a 4 meter per second delta V requirement at the right time to make it hit Mars. So the problem is it's only a 400 meter asteroid, so it's basically 1,000 times too small to melt the entire Martian pole. But yeah, no, there are asteroids out there. The problem is we don't know nearly as many Mars crossing asteroids as we do Earth crossing asteroids. Here's Elon! Here's Elon!
Yeah. Any questions?
Yes!
So, yeah.
Hi, Elon. Irene Klotz with Aviation Week. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you for the overview. Can you tell us a little bit more details about the flight test program for this and the Mark II?
Actually, can we just turn the music off? I can't quite hear because there's music playing. Oh, excellent. No, I'm sorry. Could you probably just say that again?
Yes, thank you. Can you talk a little bit more details about the flight test program for both this Mark I and the Mark II vehicle in Florida, and what the progression is to get to orbital flight and then a test flight or a commercial mission with the
There's
full
Tim, by the
vehicle?
way.
Sure.
Thanks.
So, yep. With any development into uncharted territory, it is difficult to predict these things with precision. But I do think things are going to move very fast. So
Fast
our plan
compared
is
to
in
SLS.
basically 1 to 2 months to do the 20 kilometer or 65-foot flight with Starship Mark 1. Our next flight after that might actually just be all the way to orbit with a booster and a ship.
And the question is, does it land in one piece?
I'm giving you just literally stream of consciousness here. Most likely we would not fly to orbit with Mark 1, but we would fly to orbit with Mark 3, which will be built after Mark 1 right here. In fact, we'll start building it in about a month. So,
wow!
And actually, so sorry to say this mid-question, but I did want to make sure to thank Yusaku Miyazawa for his great support. Yeah, he's
Yusaku!
awesome. Yusak 2020, that's his handle. That's a great handle.
Yusak 2020.
Anyway, he's a super cool dude, and he's like, you know, putting a lot of serious resources to helping out Starship, so I want to thank him very much for that. Anyway, so yeah, just to frame things, we are going to be building ships and boosters at both Boca and the Cape as fast as we can. And each successive, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be really nutty to see a bunch of these things. I mean, not just one, but a whole stack of them. And we're improving both the design and the manufacturing method exponentially. So, for example, with the current way that we build or the way that Mark 1 and Mark 2 cylindrical sections were built was in with basically plates. So a series of plates to create each cylinder section. With Mark 3 and beyond, we will literally take the coil of steel from the mill, unspool it, change the curvature to a 9-meter diameter, and do a single seam weld. And it would
Presumably
also be
on
thinner,
the windward side,
which makes it lighter and cheaper.
or the leeward side.
So the rate at which we will be building ships is going to be quite crazy by space standards. I think we'll probably have Mark II built within a couple of months or less, and Mark III maybe 3 months, that type of thing. Mark IV 4 months, maybe 5 months.
He's really thinking
And
hard.
we would seek to go to orbit with probably Mark IV or Mark V. So we would, I mean, this is going to sound totally nuts, but I think we want to try to reach orbit in less than 6 months.
Yeah, that sounds nuts. But the question then, what happens? What happens if one of these breaks? Like, how does that slow the program?
Provided the rate of design improvement and manufacturing improvement continues to be exponential, I think that is, accurate to within a few months.
I think it'll be at least a year.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Hi, Elon. My name is Steve Clark. I'm with the Brownsville Herald. Back in September 2014 at the groundbreaking, you said that the first crewed interplanetary mission could possibly leave.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Could possibly leave from Boca Chica. Do you think that's still the case?
Yes, it is. I think definitely possible that the first crewed mission on Starship could leave from Boca. We actually are internally competing the Cape and Boca. So I think both places will, to the best of my knowledge, both places will launch crewed missions. So I think it is extremely likely that we will launch crewed missions from Boca, and there is at least a 50% chance that it is the first mission. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Hey Elon, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut.
Hey,
How are you?
How's it going? Good. Yeah,
Good.
You have great questions online.
Thanks, you have
Yeah.
great answers.
Yeah, welcome.
So that belly flop to tail down maneuver, I
Yeah.
mean, that's something to see. Is that first one, this one right here, 20 kilometers, is it going to come in that hot and do that flip that fast
Yeah.
right here, or is it going to be out on the drone ship? Like, that's
No,
crazy.
it's basically right where Hopper took off.
Yeah.
That's basically where it's going to take off. Within very close to where it's just right over there. So yeah, that maneuver that you saw, it will execute now. When we get to, I think maybe Mark III, certainly Mark IV, I think probably that will be a good time to transition to hot gas thrusters from cold gas thrusters. So
Hot gas thrusters confirmed.
using essentially compressed nitrogen gas as the cold gas thruster is a pretty low ISP, sort of 60, 70 if you're very lucky, but very closer to 60. With methox thruster, you can get, without really even trying hard, 300 ISP. Even if you just foam cool the walls, without even regen cooling. If you regen cool it, 350, no problem, 360 even. So you're talking about something that's then 5 or 6 times the mass efficiency of the nitrogen thrusters that are on Mach 1. And if you have thrusters of that efficiency, then we don't need to use the Raptors to correct the horizontal velocity. Because right now it's actually, when the Raptors fire, the Raptors kick it over, but they actually accelerate the vehicle in the wrong direction.
Yep.
Then they have to overcorrect and then come back. Whereas if you have strong enough thrusters, you can just, using the onboard maneuvering thrusters without lighting the main engines, you can just go kick it hard, light the engine, land.
So he's
That'd
talking
be-
about
that's
upgrading,
better. Yeah.
upgrading the
And then are
RCS
those
as well.
pressure fed then, those Metalox?
Yeah. Those would be just pressure-fed, high-pressure gas methox, and so you have a high-pressure, CH4 bottle, high-pressure O2 bottle, and then the great thing is like those they don't care what attitude you're at. You can be at any attitude, any G's, any attitude, it'll still fire. Yeah. Yeah.
So that sounds like high pressure tanks, header tanks for the RCS, so they can light quickly. That's actually a good
Hi,
question.
Elon.
That's new
I'm
data.
Tim Fernholz from Quartz. Thanks so much for taking the time.
You're welcome.
2 questions, if I may. One, just technical, following up on the presentation. To do useful stuff in orbit, you're going to need the booster as well as the Starship, right?
Yes. Starship cannot get to Earth orbit without the booster. But anywhere except Earth, pretty much. Well, not counting Venus. But like
Or Jupiter.
Mars or the Moon.
The
ship,
interesting places.
Provided you have a propellant plant on Mars or Moon, the ship can easily get a single stage from the surface of the Moon all the way to the surface of Earth without a booster. So that shows you how deep, like Earth has a deep gravity well and a thick atmosphere. But definitely cannot. If we really went crazy light, you could probably do single stage to orbit, non-reusable with the ship. But that would be pointless.
Elon, I just wanted to ask, NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine had a tweet last night about this presentation, concerned, I guess, about enthusiasm for SpaceX's various programs. I'm just curious if you have any comment or response to that.
Yeah, we, for sure, from a SpaceX resource standpoint, our resources are overwhelmingly on Falcon and Dragon. That is, to be clear, it was really quite a small percentage of SpaceX that did this. Starship, less than 5% of the company, basically. The really hard part that requires a lot of resources is optimizing something past the initial prototype phase and bringing it into volume production. To be clear, the vast majority of our resources are on Dragon and Falcon, especially Crew Dragon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Elon. Chris Gebhardt with NASA Spaceflight.
Hey, Chris G!
How do you guys envision keeping the methane and oxygen inside the tanks from boiling off in any significant quantity during a multi-month interplanetary trip to Mars?
Good question.
And, on a more Earth-grounded question, what's your contamination mitigation strategy since these things are being built outside? In
Even
elements,
better
not in
question.
the factory?
Well, these are pretty far in the distance questions. These questions are relevant, but in the future years, keeping the landing propellant cold on the way to Mars is a lot easier than it may seem, because you can essentially vacuum, just like you'd keep cryogenic propellant stored on Earth for long periods of time. You vacuum jacket it. We would essentially have header tanks that are bigger than these header tanks and vent them to vacuum. So you would just basically have a tank inside a tank with multi-layer insulation, and this way you can keep things cryogenic for months, no problem.
So he's only going to store landing
you don't
fuel
even really
in the
need to
header
worry
tanks.
about boil off. You could apply some energy to cryo-cool it, but you don't really need to. You'd have a tiny amount of boil off. In vacuum, things are kind of weird. They're not like on Earth because you have no convective cooling, really, in 0G. So you actually have the sun side of your rocket is very hot, and the not sun side of your rocket is at 3 degrees Kelvin. So it's super cold. So you just keep your cold stuff on the cold side and the hot stuff on the hot side, and this is not a problem to manage. For the long-term stuff, for sort of what's called contamination of Mars, I think this concern. First of all, we'll do everything we can to mitigate it, obviously. But at the end of the day, if you're going to send people to Mars, that's a pretty big contaminant.
Yeah, people are really contaminating.
I really don't think that some Earth-based bacterium is going to be able to migrate much through Mars. The thing that makes Mars very difficult is that it is both cold and has high ultraviolet. So if it was either cold or ultraviolet, you could evolve to deal with it. But the cold slows down the metabolic processes, and then the ultraviolet.
I'm not sure
shreds
that's what Chris
shreds
G
the
was
DNA.
asking.
So you're cold and shredded. This is very difficult
Yeah.
for things
Elon's
to exist
going
on
off
the
on a
surface of Mars,
tangent
and that's
here.
why we have not found any traces of life on the surface of Mars to date. If there is any life, it'll be very deep underground, and I think very resilient. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
It's also worth noting that over time
He's
there
still
have been meteors. There have been chunks of Earth that have been chipped off by meteors, and chunks of Mars that have been chipped off from Mars. And Earth and Mars have actually exchanged material many times over the last several hundred million years.
Hey, Elon, it's Chris Davenport from the Washington Post.
Hey.
Curious about your vision for this area. I mean, when you drive by and you see this, it's surreal.
This is surreal.
Yeah, but I know your vision isn't maybe like a government launch site, like a Cape Canaveral. But what does this look like a private, operational, commercial spaceport?
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, I mean,
Yeah.
it'll definitely get fancier than it currently is, you know, because the
No
reason
more
it's not
Elon
fancier
tent.
is just because it would have taken too long to build the buildings. So since it was going to take so long to build the buildings, we just built it outside. Yeah, this is like my new thing is management by rhyming. If the schedule's long, it's wrong, and if it's tight, it's right. Yeah. It works.
Oh, God.
SR-71, you know, fastest plane in history ever. You know, it's also the coolest plane ever.
Yes, right.
You know, it had no anti-missile defenses except one: accelerate. Yeah. Zero. They tried to shoot it down many times. 0 successes.
Can you just give us a quick sense of what you think this area will look like in, say, 10 years when you are flying crews?
Oh, I think it'll be like a lot more buildings and a lot more stuff. Way more stuff than is currently here. As you can tell, the wind is really quite vigorous.
Oh my God.
Like one of the things that I think will be quite important to have locally is propellant production. So trucking massive, you know, thousands of tons of liquid oxygen to the site doesn't make a ton of sense. We should really produce the liquid oxygen here. And by the way, we have gaseous oxygen in the atmosphere. So basically,
How
just need
convenient.
electricity. I forgot to mention one of the things over time is like for the propellant production on Mars will be completely renewable because we will use solar panels. Pull the CO2 out of the atmosphere. Mars has a primarily CO2 atmosphere. Get the H2O, the water, from the ice. Mars has a massive amount of ice. You combine H2O and CO2, and you get CH4 and O2. There's a very long understood process of run it over a ruthenium catalyst. This is a Sabatier process to create CH4 and O2 out of CO2 and H2O. And that same system that we developed for Mars will long-term be used on Earth. So long-term, this is like, long-term we will produce the propellant for the rockets using solar power. And pull the CO2 from Earth's atmosphere, use water, combine that to create CH4 and O2 on Earth. And so the long-term outcome will be quite sustainable and renewable for Earth and Mars.
Jeff Faust of Space News. You spent a lot of time this summer working with the FAA, getting approval to do a single Starhopper flight to 150 meters. Now you're talking about flying a much bigger vehicle to much higher altitudes and ultimately flying to orbit. Where are you in the FAA in terms of getting approval for that? And will those flight opportunities be able to coexist with, say, the local residents around here?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say
This is the hard part.
The FAA Administrator for Space has been excellent to work with. Very forward-leaning. Really, I would just like to say thanks to the FAA for their support, actually. I mean, really, there's, you know, minimal delays related to regulatory activity, and they've been really very reasonable, and so, you know, the support's very much appreciated.
Please let us launch.
So, you know, I think the FAA asks, you know, good questions and wants to make sure things are safe, as do we. And so we're going to make sure that the risk to the public is extremely, you know, vanishingly small, almost nothing, basically. So, you know, it's the same sort of thing that we've had we deal with on Falcon 9 and Dragon, and has gone very well, you know, for the 17 years that SpaceX has been around. So you know, I feel pretty optimistic about things. I don't see any fundamental obstacles. We are working with the residents of Boca Chica Village because we think over time it's going to be quite disruptive to living in Boca Chica Village because it'll end up needing to get cleared for safety a lot of times. So I'd say probably not very. There would be just not very comforting to the Boca Chica Village. I think the actual danger to Boca Chica Village is low, but it's not tiny. So therefore, when we want super tiny risk. So, probably over time, better to buy out the villages, and we've made an offer to that effect. Yeah.
Yeah, and they've turned it down.
Thank you, Elon. It's Tarek Malik from Space.com. And I was curious, with the design update here, if 100-person crew size for base flights is still kind of the target now, and how the life support...
Sorry, could you talk about louder? The wind is like howling in my ear, unfortunately.
Sure. Yes, with the design update here, I'm curious if the 100-person crew size target is still the main target for base crew flights, and how the life support system for that is being developed for both the initial test flights and then maybe for Mr. Miyazawa's flight too in upcoming years. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's really, I think you could still do 100 people. Like the pressurized volume on Starship is around 1,000 cubic meters. So if you had 100 people, you'd have 10 cubic meters per person, which is, especially in like a 0G situation, that's actually quite a lot of room. Unlike a 1G situation, you only get to use one surface, really, live on one surface in a 1G situation, but in a 0G situation, you can live on 6 surfaces. You can like all 6 sides of a cube. So
what a
things are way roomier.
Cause we're dancing on the ceiling.
And by the way, 1,000 cubic meters, I think, is close to what the space station pressurized volume is.
Yes.
So Starship is like basically like launching space station pressurized volume on every flight. This is quite a lot. We can make it bigger if as needed.
So the life support system's something they need to get working for Miyazawa.
Hi, Elon. Stephen Clark from Spaceflight Now. Thanks for taking our questions.
All the cool people.
We see the Starship prototype here, Mark 1. You talked a little bit about how you're going to build the super heavy vehicle. Can you update us a little bit more detail about how that development is going, where exactly it'll be built, and when we might see it on a test stand or on a pad?
Sure. Yeah. Good question. So the priority is to build at least 2 Starships at each site, at Boca and the Cape, and then start building the booster. So we'll complete Mach 1 through 4 before doing Mach 1 of the booster, and then we'll do Mach 1 and Mach 2 of the boosters at the Cape and Boca. The main constraint on launching the booster is
falling over.
But is engines, because obviously the booster has a lot of engines. So spooling up the Raptor production rate is extremely important to, vital, obviously essential to completing the booster. Doing the tanks and the legs and say the grid fins, that is not a constraint. Like that we can get done fast. But we need, I think we'd want to have at least probably 24 engines, but I think really at least 31 engines to launch. So you add that up, you've got a lot of engines there. We need for 4 Starships, we need these just have 3. Mach 1 and 2 just have three Raptor engines. Mach 3
doing
and 4
math
have
in his
6.
head.
So you add them. This looks like a lot of engines, basically, including development engines. From now through orbit, we probably need 100 Raptor engines. And our production rate right now is maybe one every sort of 8 to 10 days. But it should be one every couple of days in a few months. And then our target is to get to a Raptor engine every day by Q1 next year, or sooner.
And
Yeah,
if
I would
may,
like to
when-
know
when-
what the
when will
real
we see people flying on
bottleneck
this
is.
vehicle into space?
Well, I think we could potentially see people fly next year.
Yeah, 3 years now.
If we get to orbit in about 6 months, then and we have it's designed to be a reusable rocket, so a reusable booster, reusable ship, so we can do many flights to prove out the reliability very quickly. So whereas with an expendable vehicle, you have to build, if you want to do 10 flights, let's say, to prove out the viability of an expendable vehicle, you need to build and destroy 10 vehicles. Whereas we can do 10 flights, within basically 10 days. So when I say rapid reusability, I mean, you could fly it. You could fly the booster 20 times a day. You fly the ship 3 or 4 times a day. That's what I mean by reusability. And the only reason the ship it takes more time than that, it's more time than the booster, is that you need a couple of you need 3 or 4 orbits to synchronize for the ship so that it is I don't want to get into those complicated thing of orbital dynamics and the rotation of the Earth relative to satellite. But as anyone who's knows the space, the track of a satellite, unless it's an equatorial satellite, is a sinusoidal track on the Earth.
It's not technically
unless it's
a sinusoid.
equatorial or sun synchronous. So.
Not a sinusoid.
Launching sort of due east, you have to kind of wait for the orbits to the ground path to sync up with the launch site, and that's the only reason it really takes maybe 6 hours or something like that to sync up and land back at Boca or the Cape.
This is still live.
One of the really interesting things to contemplate is the total mass to orbit capability of a large reusable system where you have a significant fleet in operation. If you've got something like Starship where you've got maybe 150 tons capable to orbit, and the ship can fly, is capable of, say, theoretically flying 4 times a day, but they call it like 75% uptime, so theoretical 3 times a day, 365 days a year. So that's like about 1,000 flights a year for the ship. The booster can do a lot more than that. This is obviously max theoretical. And you've got 150 tons. That's 150,000 tons to orbit per year per ship. And if you've got, say, 10 ships, you would have 1.5 million tons to orbit per year.
He's just doing
20
numbers.
Ships, 3 million tons orbit a year. I think the total.
How many solar panels does that
rest
take?
of world capacity, if you take all rockets on Earth, including Falcon, the total capacity to orbit, I think, is around 200 to 300 tons currently.
Thanks, Mon Calma.
Total Earth capacity to orbit is about 200 to 300 tons if all rockets launched at max rate.
Benaka?
So we're talking about something that is, with a fleet of Starships, 1,000 times more than all Earth capacity combined. All other rockets combined would be 0.1%, including ours.
He's just doing
But you kind of need that if you're going to build a city on Mars. So
yeah,
it's
you
got to
do.
be done. It's got to be done.
It's got to be done. Numbers.
Elon, hi, it's Bill Harwood with CBS News. I just wanted to follow up on an earlier question about life support systems, because that's not trivial, and obviously you're building a very sophisticated piece of hardware.
This
Are you
dude
thinking
owns an
about
iPhone.
closed-loop regenerative systems? Are you thinking about developing these in-house, or are you looking at designs that already exist on space station, for example? And what are you shooting for initially? I know you're not going to be launching 100 people on your first flight, but what sort of a crew complement can we expect on those initial test flights, and how sophisticated does that life support system need to be? Thanks.
Yeah,
he's doing the math
for sure
right
you'd
now.
want to have a regenerative life support system. So that just means you're recycling everything. you know, that's for sure important if you're on a several months journey to Mars and then you know on the surface for 18 months. Regenerative is a kind of a necessity.
But not for the first test
I don't think
flight.
it's actually super hard to do that. Relative to the spacecraft itself, the life support system is pretty straightforward. Yeah, you just got to it's pretty straightforward. You got to take out the water vapor and the CO2, convert that back to O2.
Pretty straightforward.
It's not super hard. The early flights of Starship would not have any people on board. It would just be in automatic mode. It would only be later flights that would have people on board. So I think like even the first flights to Mars, we would send at least a couple of ships, have them just land automatically before sending people.
Right, but how many would you go into? What about orbit first?
Take about 2 more questions.
Hi, Elon. Eric Berger with Ars Technica.
Hey, Eric!
I would just argue the X-15 was the coolest plane of all time.
Ooh, shade.
And my question, I guess, is, you know, we're not really used to seeing hardware built in less than a year. Can you talk about the timeline for this vehicle, like when you started fabricating it and how you went so quickly on it? Thank you.
Actually, I'm not sure. I think like up until October last year, we were pursuing a completely different design. So it was really, I switched the design to steel, I think, approximately maybe October last year. And then it's like, okay, what's the fastest we can build a steel, ship in Texas? And then I think we built it in about 4 months or something, maybe 5 months. And then the ship, I think I'm not sure exactly when we started building it, but yeah, maybe about 4 months ago that we started building the ship, maybe 5. So it's been 4 or 5 months since we started building the ship from nothing.
From nothing.
Yeah, something like that.
And how did you go so fast?
Well, I have this mantra called "If the schedule's long, it's wrong. If it's tight, it's right." Yeah, and just basically just go recursive improvement on schedule, and say with feedback loop, did this make it go faster? Okay, if it didn't, we're gonna need to fix it. If the design takes a long time to build, it's the wrong design. This is the fundamental thing. Over and over, it's like the tendency is to complicate things. And I have another thing, which is like the best part is no part. The best process is no process. It weighs nothing, costs nothing, can't go wrong. So, as obvious as that sounds, the best part is no part. Like the
philosophy of manufacturing.
The thing I'm most impressed with when I have the design meetings at SpaceX is what did you undesign? Undesigning is the best thing. Just delete it. That's the best thing. Yeah.
Hey, Elon. Robin here from supercluster.com. My question
Yay.
is about potential fund synergy between SpaceX and your other projects. 1, is there a concept for a Tesla Mars rover? 2, are you going to be launching? Yeah, is there a concept already?
Well, actually, the Teslas will work on Mars, you know. If you can either
Teslas will
you just
work
drive
on
them
Mars,
pretty much, because electric cars don't need oxygen; they don't need air, so you can just drive them around, no problem.
Are you going to bring a boring machine to the moon or Mars?
I think that would be a good idea.
Me too.
Yeah, because you could just make as much room as you want underground, and you protect it from radiation and everything, and you can probably use the materials for building. And you need to mine ice and dirt anyway, so why not, you know? Totally.
Thanks, Elon. And I don't believe you about the aliens.
I hope I'm wrong. I mean, I hope they're well, if they are here, I hope they're nice, you know? They haven't killed us yet, so they must be not that bad.
Oh, man.
All right, any other questions?
Yes! Really?
Hi, Elon. I'm Martin Avignon from the SpaceX subreddit. We've crowdsourced a few questions. It sounds like I only have time for one, but oh well. I was wondering, could you elaborate on the number of engines that will be used for the boost back and entry burns on
Yes,
Starship
good
and
question.
What the
Because I
dry
think
landing
that
weight of the
animation was
Super
wrong.
Heavy will be.
I think they'll need more
Oh yeah, so
boost
Starship
back.
wouldn't really. There's the
Super
20
Heavy
kilometer
does the
thing,
boost
which is mostly. It's going to have 3 engines, but you only really need like either 2 of them to work at any given point in time. But the ship, when it's in orbital operation, will only need a tiny bit of impulse to deorbit. Like you need like a very tiny, like less than 5% of the mass of the vehicle is needed to deorbit. So you just like really puff one of the engines, and the main thing is like trying to get the control. Like how do you shut off the thrust really precisely, so that you don't over or undershoot your target. And then for the booster has 7 engines that gimbal, and then the rest, whether it's a total of 31 or 37, are fixed. The fixed engines would not be used for boost back. So only the center 7 would be used for boost back. And then I really want to try to avoid an entry burn, if at all possible. That would, because you have to have a high, the system has to be capable of a very high Q entry in order to avoid an entry burn. But I think we might be able to make.
Come on, belly re-entry. That's what we want.
It doesn't need an entry burn, hopefully.
Belly re-entry.
It just needs a landing burn. Yeah.
Is that it?
All right, great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Okay.
Hope you enjoyed it.
The best process is no process, right? Yeah, if Starship Super Heavy could perform a belly re-entry, that would really help it a lot. Listen, I am skeptical, Kristen Gaines, but we all know what is possible and what has been done. And I think that drone pilot really managed to sink that very cool. Notice how that drone pilot actually flew into the darkness and then they cross-faded to the SpaceX. That is a drone pilot that is working with the producer, right? Badass. That is a tight maneuver. Yeah, I really want to see Elon the Rapper. I've already sent a message to some of my remix buddies hoping that something will happen. Tight is right. Right is tight. Okay, we gotta turn this off. What are we gonna do? Blah, pictures. Right is tight. Long is wrong, tight is right. That's right. The best process is yeah, we want to see some stutter edits. 5%. 7 engines. No, that was a nice recommendation, I'm gonna say. I've become a fan of the Corridor's recent thing. Funnily enough, I started rewatching their stuff after I was name checked by Mystery Guitar Man. So hey, yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and watch a lot of that stuff. The main thing that came out of this was they are very much going towards Methalox, pressure-fed Methalox reaction control thrusters. Right, that's gonna be a big thing. They're gonna do the tiles. We sort of knew the tiles were coming. The active transpiration cooling is out. The fabrication system has changed. That's actually another new piece of information. So basically they're going to get rolls of sheet stainless steel directly from the foundry, and they're going to just change the curvature and have a single seam weld up the side. Now, of course, the question is, can they make that seam weld better, cleaner, stronger? We're going to see what happens there. Like this design here, obviously this design is dead. Look at poor Starhopper there. It gets no love anymore. It's been just left there after crashing, landing, not staying together totally. Look at those. Which one's missing? Who knows? It's not going to be scrapped. They're probably going to stick something on. They're going to stick it in a museum and use it as a water tank. Yeah, again, these are photos from a guy called David Clift Reeves, who said, please feel free to use my photographs from the SpaceX Boca Chica facility. And I like how they've got these little tents here that are just hanging out. Come on, give me... Oh, look! Now, these are actually functional pieces of hardware, by the way. These are tracking radars that are used for, talking to spacecraft as they pass overhead. Did they ditch the test stand idea? Well, at this point, it's not clear because they are still very much not producing Raptor engines quickly enough to need an extra test stand. So 2 of the engines on the prototype that they showed off in Elon's Twitter, in fact, these engines here, 2 of these engines have never been fired before. They have been shipped directly from Hawthorne in Los Angeles to this so they can be integrated, so they can test that they work. 2 of them are not even correctly hooked up at this time. After this presentation, I suspect what will happen is they will strip the vehicle down again. They will continue to work on the interiors. A number of these will go to the McGregor test facility, or SpaceX's McGregor facility, where they will perform full duration burns before coming back and getting integrated, and then they will actually be finally properly working. Like, this not for flight band isn't really relevant. How will Super Heavy land with the protruding leg fins? Why have them at all? Well, I think what I see is the big fins on the upper stage here, and maybe I should actually, now I think about it, can I actually rewind? Hold on. I've just got to do something. Let's go to YouTube. Maybe we can bring the presentation up. That's a good idea, right? Sorry, I'm looking at arms control wonk and all that. Because, many few people don't realize that I obviously know a little about nuclear weapons and like talking about those. So let's look for SpaceX. Now you can see all the recommendations. Oh, what about it? Live things, Lab Padre. Yeah, whatever. Where's the actual SpaceX channel? God, there's all these like crappy half-assed things they don't really know. Here's the video. It is. Thank you. Let's try that. Let's watch this. And this. Bingo! Thank you very much to La Guitarra Ja 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 Ja. So let's skip for. Let's try and scrub to find the. Here's the look.
Feels like oat steel.
There we go. Right. So what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so the Starship and Super Heavy, right? If you see them stacked, here we go. See them stacked. Now, having Starship sitting on top of this is going to move the center of pressure way forwards. Where is it? Actually, here's a nice picture right here. Look. So I think they're going to need those fins for passive stability, so they might as well have them. The thing they need to change is obviously to have the grid fins forward of that so that they can perform the reverse into the atmosphere. My question would then be, can they actually perform the belly flop maneuver with those grid fins? And I don't think so. I don't think the grid fins are large enough or have enough authority there, because there's too much mass in those engines. It might be possible if they can change the offset of that so that it flies sideways into the atmosphere like this. That will really help them in terms of descent, right? Looks like a giant squid mounted on a rocket. Is that a bad thing? No, they're not going to have any plan for artificial gravity. The official plan that Elon has said several times, Elon has mentioned several times about connecting two starships nose to nose like this, and then they would spin them around and play them out on cables, right? This is an old idea that goes back to the Gemini program, and Elon has very specifically talked about this. Okay, I'm going to turn this volume down. Yeah, no, there was a YouTube video like a couple of weeks ago basically saying, oh, why don't we just connect starships nose to nose and spin them around on cables? And we were like, well, yeah, that's obviously the plan, isn't it? Why are you making a YouTube video about this very obvious thing? Anyway, that's all cool. Obviously, it was nice to have someone make it. The Booster Plus Starship have more or less engines than the N1. They look like up to 43 engines, which is kind of annoying because 42 would be the obvious perfect number, right? How do we build one in KSP? Yeah, now do we build one in KSP? I actually have to field the cats, and I have to do a bunch of other things. I get a ton of messages on my phone. So I'm just sitting here hanging out talking about stuff. Yeah. Well, the N1 obviously didn't have modern computer technology. Now, let's switch back to this and take a look at it. 37 engines. Note the way these are set up. You've got these little cluster diamonds here, and then you've got one in the middle, and you get 7 in the center. These are the ones that gimbal. These ones around the edge do not. Also notice how these actually stick out underneath the leg fairings, which is kind of interesting. So I think they need this to actually get that extra thrust. How many of those are for redundancy? Do you think the header tanks being in the tip of the nose cone is purely a Mark 1? I think it's purely a Mark 1 thing. I think it's entirely just there because they need it. I think, actually, I wonder about the header tank locations because the spacecraft actually becomes more stable if you put the header tanks in the belly. I did that in a test, and it became a much more flyable spacecraft when we could push the fuel mass into one side of the spacecraft. Oh wow, there's so many questions in chat. It tapers out at the bottom. I'll be interested to see when they actually start building this thing, because this is even way more ambitious. Obviously, this is going to have a big fuel tank and everything in it. Let's flip around. You know, Elon did a surprisingly good job. I think he did a better job than normal, I think, because a lot of the audience were local. There was only a few people that weren't totally aware of what SpaceX does. So now these tiles, my big question is how are they going to bond these tiles to the stainless steel structure? Because delamination of the heat shield, like the tiles falling off on the space shuttle, was a big problem. And it's all very well and good to say that you can have very thin tiles but that get very, very hot, but you can't just stick them on, right? The adhesive would melt. So they need to come up with a mechanism. Tough rock is like one of the things people talked about, but I no, it's not going to be staples. How do you fix these to it? Flex tape, Elmer's. These are all ideas that work in your reality, which does not involve the fury of re-entry. Have I seen Rob's latest KSP video? It makes a rocket power coaster and coaster wheels. No, I haven't. I do not think they're going to be using vibranium super glue because that doesn't exist. Also, adamantium is out. Yeah, that's a lot of damage there, right? Rivets. You can't really You can't really rivet ceramic heat shield tiles. Unobtainium. Unobtainium is obviously the answer to everything, right? And JB Weld does not. Hook and groove. Slide the tiles into each other. Yeah, so that means that one falls off and then they all start to fall off. Is that the plan? Struts, maybe. Aerogel, epoxy. People are just making... Listen, people are saying aerogel, epoxy, and magic. And right now, I think based on all of those people's experiences, those are all the same thing. It might as well be magic. Can you make stainless steel Velcro? Maybe if you use nanotechnology, right? They auto-strut the tiles to the front of... Yes, auto-struts. That's the magic. What else do we have? Can we watch... Oh, this is the picture I like. Where is it? Here. Because I realized... Notice this picture here. I think that my Millennium Falcon is almost the same size. It's like perfectly to scale. Look at that. Beautiful, huh? My Millennium Falcon and my Starship are the same, are a correct scale. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, the Millennium Falcon. How we love the... I'm going to say, notice that that is a New Hope version of the Millennium Falcon rather than the Last Jedi and the Force Awakens version. Yes. We are going to have a new Millennium Falcon model, by the way, for the new Star Wars movie. So Yes, pretty. Perfectly balanced as all things should be. I technically have the wrong Starship model, but if I hold it like this, no one's gonna... If I hold it like this, look! Look, it's a model. It's a perfect model. Wait a second. There it is. Look! It's a perfect model. How about this? Look, it looks fine from the belly. No one can see, because it's 3D. See that? What a beautiful model that is perfectly accurate, balanced, and everything. Flip landing on repeat. Do we think we should find the flip landing? Where is... Here we go. Here we go again. Look at this beautiful spacecraft. I like how they have... I loved how they just decided we're going to do this in Boca Chica, including the 30-meter tall launch pad with the flame diverters. Other phallic things in my drawer. What? Guys, you want to see a real rocket? Look, here's a real rocket. This is a ULA Atlas V, right? There, that's a real rocket. This flies right now. This isn't any of this theoretical crap. This has some history that goes back right to the 1950s. It's a 551. Yes. Okay, we still need to find the flip and burn. Oh no, they're going to show it again. There we go. It's going to come up in a minute. You're being kept awake by black holes in the size of the universe. Sorry, I can't. And by the way, I get kept awake at night by the heat death of the universe. Here we go. Look at it. Look at that flame diverter. Diverting all those flames. Wow. Look at it go. And we get the Mach cones. What happens when Mexico just annexes Boca Chica? Well, let me tell you, Mexico has made more awesome rocket games than the US. Yeah, that's right. They're directing it towards the barbecues, right? Again, I think this is a mistake. They only use a single engine in the boost back. It makes more sense to use all 7 engines, core engines on the boost back. And here we go. Time for the butt sex. Docking. Refueling. That's it. Do you think Star Citizen will be released for the... Well, that's a good question. Yes, that's exactly what it is. Notice also that the curvature of the... So there's a section called the raceway where it's a conduit where they have cabling and plumbing, and they have curvature that basically provides aerodynamic functionality. When we fuel together in orbit, cheek to cheek. That's right, yeah. Are you kidding? They will not be playing Star Citizen when we get to Mars. Have you ever thought about how long it takes to download a terabyte of data? Here's the refueling. A simplified version, right? So Yargnet, I think that depends upon... So Yargnet's pointing out that the animation, if we reverse, if we rewind... Right, see this. Yargnet's pointing out that this is landing on 3 engines. And Elon says that it's going to be very hard to get it to throttle down to 50% thrust. 50% thrust, as he claims it, is about 100 tons. So that would be a 300-ton booster. So that's super heavy. Yeah, I think that's fine. Right? That's what I'm saying. I think we haven't actually seen... Where's the Starship landing? Oh, here we go. Now, people were saying, oh, I don't think this is to scale. But this is totally to scale. That's a 50-meter tall booster. Right? That's a 50-meter tall booster. So the landing like that makes total sense. Okay. This is him pantomiming it with his hands. Come on, where is it? There. Let's play it again. Play it again, Sam. Yeah, if it was CGI, it would look a whole lot cooler. I like that they do have a sort of shiny look on it. Notice that's landing on only 2 engines, by the way. See that? Right, turns and lands. Right, it has 3 engines. J to back 10 seconds. Thank you. Thank you, Snoop G. Right, so no, they can totally land on off-center engines, right? Because they all actually fire through the center of mass. So they just need to make sure their lateral drift rate is low enough when they touch down. Wouldn't a flip that violent? Yes. So a flip that violent would cause the fuel to move internally, but the landing burns are supposed to be done using small header tanks that are way smaller. This is actually a good image here, by the way. These, you see these little points here? I don't know if you didn't notice it in the previous ones. These are the pipes that will actually be used for refueling, right? So they should be on the center line, but they're... Oh, wait, there. I think this is the one. So the idea is that's why they have to flip upside down so the fuel lines can go in the correct direction. You declare holy war. Okay. And this 380 seconds, he's already saying, yeah, this is like really hard. And I fully agree. Right, well, the outer section engines on... Yeah, they will... I'm not sure making them non-throttleable makes them much easier, to be honest. But hey. Yeah, we didn't see much on the legs at all. I mean, we see actually these pods here, but those could be empty as far as I tell. I would not want to be a test pilot for a Starship landing, because they don't need a pilot. The space shuttle tiles were affixed using fancy epoxy, I believe. But the space shuttle tiles, they were affixed to aluminium, and aluminium has a much lower point, not so much melting point. It's not the melting point of the material that matters, it's the point at which it starts to lose structural strength, right? And with aluminium, that's way lower. Whereas stainless steel actually remains quite strong up to much closer to its melting point, apparently. No, I wouldn't want to be a test passenger. No, I'm sorry. There's limits, and this whole thing really scares me. This does actually scare me because of the number of times I've crashed. 301 stainless steel. The whole thing is it's supposed to be very strong at cryogenic temperatures, so they can make it much lighter. And I believe that while the original Atlas used a stainless steel tank, it was a different kind of stainless steel that doesn't necessarily get this cryogenic strength. Oh no, he plans to use this for space travel. The whole point of this is being able to launch large amounts of mass into space. And that can be people, that can be hardware. And it needs to be able to be reused without any refurbishment, right? The space shuttle, of course, could be reused, but it needed a lot of refurbishment. The heat shield on Dragon can, in theory, be reused, but they need to replace Dragon can be reused, but they need to replace the entire heat shield. Low maintenance. Low maintenance is everything. And this is it, right? See these hexagonal tiles, and there's going to be a lot of these. No, this is not an SSTO. No. There is no point in building a single stage to orbit if you can have a highly reusable first stage, right? This is a 2-stage to orbit whereby the second stage can enter, re-enter, and land without needing any refurbishment other than refueling the whole thing, right? That's the whole thing here. SpaceX's Falcon 9, it has a perfectly good first stage which can be reused, The second stage burns up because they have not figured out how to reuse it, and they've essentially given up on that idea. This is a radical redesign that's designed to deliver large amounts of mass to orbit and be able to land and refly with nothing more than a refueling cycle. So that's what this is all about. This is rethinking the entire rocket design. Like, the aerodynamics on this are not like wings on ailerons on a regular aircraft. These wings move more like, they're air brakes. They're air brakes. That's what they are. So apparently Elon has suggested that there will be dual bell vacuum Raptors. There will be 3 of them on the Starship because they need them for launch abort scenarios, right? They don't need them for anything else. The only reason they would need the dual bells is to be able to perform a pad abort. Right, mechanically attached is a fine, response, but how mechanically attached? How does that actually work? Right? Is it like a stud that goes through and the tile is molded around it? It's really not clear. A dual engine bell is a regular engine bell is basically a single curve, right? And the longer you make that curve, the lower the pressure of the gas is when it leaves. Now, the longer it is, the more efficient your engine is, the more specific impulse you get. The problem is, if it's too long, the pressure of the exhaust leaving gets too low, and if you fire it inside an atmosphere, then the air pushes back inside the bell, and what it does is it pushes the exhaust over to one side of the bell or the other. And so the rocket exhaust, instead of burning out nice and neatly, it starts to bang around inside it, and that can damage your exhaust. Now, what they do with the dual bell is they have 2 segments. So they have a curve that goes down, and then they have a ridge, right? It comes down, and then they have a ridge, and then it has a second section. So in the vacuum, it follows the entire curve of the engine bell, and it gets the high efficiency bell. But if you're firing the engine in high pressure atmosphere, you get the air flowing into that first ridge, and then that they can't get past that ridge in the middle. Therefore, you can have 2 different curvatures, 2 different engine bell sizes. And that's the whole point. It's designed to be an engine which works well in vacuum and can be used at sea level, but it's not essential, right? So I think this is what they're talking about because they need it for a pad abort scenario. That is where the booster is sitting on the pad and it's on fire, and you need to save the crew and the passengers and everyone else, and this thing can fly away. It can't do that on 3 engines because it's too heavy. You need all 6 engines. So there you go. Can you do it? I cannot see a situation where you would need a triple bell. Super magnets. Haven't you known that stainless steel is non-magnetic? Yes, stainless steel, higher temperature. High chromium. You guys, I'm going to trust you what you say when they're talking about high chromium stainless steel alloy. It's shiny, it must be magnetic. What? No. I can make silver perfectly shiny. It's non-magnetic. What are you talking about? Yeah, you can get magnetic stainless steels, but I believe the 301 stainless steel that they're using here is non-magnetic. And it's just because it's different, types of stainless steel. High nickel stainless steel, I believe, is more magnetic. Fundamentally, there is this problem that the only people that are demanding a rocket this big is Elon Musk and Yosaka Maezawa. Now, there are certainly people that would have uses for a rocket this big, but this is so out there that nobody is incorporating it in their planning. It would be very nice if it would happen, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. Just make the rockets out of magnets. Yeah. The high alloying element stainless steels are all yeah, okay, I don't know what this is. This thing is... Oh, there we go. This thing is 60% steel and 40% batshit crazy. Yes. I don't swear very often, but that is so correct. Do you think Blue Origin might make New Glenn out of stainless steel to compete? I have no idea what Blue Origin will do, and I'm not going to speculate because Blue Origin are rather stealthy. They are an enigma wrapped inside a cipher, wrapped inside a puzzle. Oh yes, we know nothing about what Blue Origin are going to do, but we do know that they are going to be selling engines to the United Launch Alliance, and I'm happy to see that happening because Aerojet Rocketdyne have really been dropping the ball for the past few years. They've kind of just been cruising along, relying on government contracts. Yeah. Have I heard of any other application that I've seen plenty of things. So the main application I can think of is large telescopes. The Louvois telescope, they actually put out a video saying, by the way, if we had, this, it's not so much the 100 tons, it's the very large payload, 9-meter wide payload fairing, which is something that nobody else has. The problem is, of course, launching something out of that because you need to have a payload door rather than fairings that pop off. Yeah, capturing an asteroid for mining doesn't need a payload thing that much, no. Ugh. Sorry, getting some yawniness here. I think you're absolutely right. So Jack Potato says Elon doing his thing, spending his money, building crazy ideas. That is exactly what we want, as long as nobody dies in the process, right? It's all fun and games and giant home projects until somebody dies during re-entry. So if we can avoid that eventuality, that would be fantastic. Are no Aerospike engines close to flight readiness? No, they're not 30% more efficient. Aerospikes, what they have is that they don't have the variation in efficiency between sea level and space. They are able to run with a single nozzle, which makes them attractive for single stage to orbits, but they're not 30% more efficient, no. We'll send 2 Illudium Q-36 explosive space modulators, maybe 3, yes. Are you going to go to planet X, which is, of course, just after planet Y? No mention of Starship C just yet. Yeah, they're still talking about people. This is the thing. They didn't have any pictures of a Starship cargo variant, interestingly enough. Jorgen, I don't actually know how long the engines could work in vacuum, but we just know you need the thrust to weight ratio. Is there a Starship cargo variant? They have certainly referred to a Starship cargo variant in the past. And we've seen a door that opened in some animations. They did not show any example of that here. However, there's nothing with the current design that stops the previous doors from working. Oh, there are high-res renders. Okay. Well, let's go and take a look at SpaceX. SpaceX. Photos. The latest even. Well, let's do this. Yeah, no. I don't see anything here. I see the wart. Yeah, okay. Forget it. We're going back to the Starship. A Starship has a cargo variant that is definitely a super heavy launch vehicle. Well, again, the goal of 150 tons to orbit, that is exactly what they put to orbit on the Saturn V, essentially, right? Starship C could return the Hubble telescope to Earth. It might not be perfect. Then I guess the question is, if you have a Starship C, is there going to be some way to put a robotic manipulator arm in there, right? Has anyone ever made a Methox Aerospike engine? Listen, the only person that has ever flown a Methox engine is SpaceX, and they only flew it to 150 meters, right? This is kind of something that everybody knew was coming, but it hasn't actually flown until now. Do you think they're planning on using the Starship to launch the Starship satellites? That would be, if they can make this work, that would be the obvious application for SpaceX to use it on, because they benefit from launching as many pieces of hardware as possible. However, the deployment mechanism would need to be completely redesigned. Currently, the deployment mechanism for Starlink satellites involves taking your upper stage, which is nothing like this, but then they spin it around and then they let them all go and they kind of like zip out there. They're like spread out like a deck of cards. It's rather beautiful, but I don't know how you do that with a Starship. BFR is taller than a Saturn V. Yes, it's 118 meters tall. Saturn V is 111. And, Super Heavy has a 30-meter tall pad beneath it, which includes a flame diverter and everything else. No, they're still looking at using an ocean pad. However, there is currently no barge that is large enough to handle something as heavy as the Super Heavy, right? But it makes so much sense if they can land on a barge at sea, because it just gives them so much extra performance. Would I trust SpaceX to put a nuclear pulse? Nuclear pulse? No, I don't trust anyone to put a nuclear pulse propulsion system in stage. No. A nuclear thermal rocket, maybe, but that needs a lot more flights before I would trust that. Will Starship do a GTO launch? So, no, they will. Let me tell you, it will have to be able to handle returning from GTO and hypothetically the moon. I do wonder what kind of performance will it get from a geostationary transfer orbit. It might actually make more sense for them to launch up with like a Centaur upper stage inside and then drop that in low Earth orbit, right? A GTFO launch is what we call hitting the big red abort button, and as I've said, that would require all 6 engines on the Starship, even although 3 of them are not optimized for operation at sea level. You don't know, Potato, you don't know who I am? I'm just a nerd on the internet that played Kerbal Space Program, got known. I have degrees in physics, and I'm generally pretty good at actually figuring out what SpaceX is all about. But I have no special link to SpaceX, no special knowledge. I just like answering questions and talking. And yeah, I'm a software guy, but I have degrees in physics and astronomy, and I have a YouTube channel that's got almost 1 million viewers where I talk about rockets and things for fun, because I like rockets. I love rockets. Will they use Dragon capsules to get people down to, or just Starship? I think if you have Starship and you were launching people in Starship, then you will be landing them in Starship, because Dragon capsules require a lot of refurbishment. Do you like fun? Maybe. I just answer lots of questions, I also talk about nuclear physics because I'm a nuclear physics person, No, I have no link with NASA or anything. I do work sort of on and off with the B612 Foundation on asteroids and killer asteroids and stuff, because I did study, the end of the world, basically, by killer asteroids. So I'm largely somebody that's learned a lot of things on the internet and knows enough. Explain e to the pi I. Yes, e to the pi I is one of the most beautiful equations ever. It's an equation. There's an equation where you have e, pi, I, 1, and 0, and those are all the most important numbers in mathematics. And I can't actually remember writing it out, but it is rather beautiful. I don't know. At this point, I feel I want to be doing. Let's go back to this Dropbox and we'll see pictures. These are radar radio communication system used to talk to SpaceX spacecraft. That's them. This is a gorgeous crane, by the way. This crane here is magnificent. That's the Y-boom gullying there, right? Yeah. Yes. This thing is 50 meters tall, right? Oh, thank you. Did you guys see my Discover video? Let me bring it up. It's in here somewhere. Video. How long is this? Oh, no, that's not the one. Oops, wrong one. Let me see if I can... I don't know where my videos are. They're often around Manhattan lifting stuff onto smaller skyscrapers and stuff. Yeah, they're around San Francisco right now because we have lots of tall buildings being built. Yeah, this is just somebody else's photos he sent me showing the hardware that has been assembled. And as I said, I fully expect some of this to get disassembled while they work on it. Like, they might unstack this. I think there's a section here, right? They've got the raceway has been covered. Maybe I can find a better photo of it. This is him getting close. Oh, come on, get closer still. Drive faster. I hear, banjos. So this section here, right, you've got the raceway, which is a conduit that runs down the side of the spacecraft, and that's covered with an aerodynamic fairing. And again here, so I think they've left this uncovered because they're going to destack this in the next few days, right? Oh, that's the Stargate, yes. Which is, cool. Yeah, you can actually see the fairing here a little better. That they've not got anything here because they're going to unstack this. I think they might take the fins off the upper stage, but these ones seem to be fairly well secured. Are you actually going to go to one of these presentations? When I get invited and when my schedule works. That's really what it is. I want to just... I don't want to ask questions like that. I've got a million... Yeah, I'm sure I'd love to ask questions, but... Oh, there, you see it there, right? See the shape. See how this is steeper on one side and smoother on the other? So the spacecraft will actually be moving to the left when it's flying, right? Through descent. So this lets the air remain stuck to it, and then it cuts away, and this whole rear is in the leeward side. Yeah, I was very skeptical of Starhopper, and then it totally flew. Some more pictures here. These, I don't know how those are secured. Well, Everyday Astronaut is basically playing catch up because he is an honest to God space nerd, and I totally love his energy. I love the fact that he kind of just bought this spacesuit as a joke, and he's somehow parlayed it into his whole thing. And he doesn't have the degrees in physics and everything that I do, but he is doing great videos on rocket science, and I totally love the fact that he has much better presentation. He knows his art and everything. I know physics. Like, it's all cool. I think the world is big enough for more than one person, and I'm happy to work with the dude. He has a lot of positive energy. I'm a big fan. Okay. Again, this is looking more... This is leeward side here. Oh. Yeah. I'm just looking at these pictures to see if there's anything interesting here. Again, there's these access ports. The crane that they have seems like it can't lift. Why would it not be able to lift super heavy? Yeah, Vintage Flight's great. She, Vintage... Yeah, no, Amy's cool. She has a lot of fun stories. Although, obviously, I'm like, well, you kind of, glossed over that a little, didn't you? I'm the person that's like, no, you can't gloss over that. We have to explain exactly how the signal conditioning equipment was connected to the power supply so we can understand how it fixed itself, right? That's just me. I take like a 25-minute video explaining the tiniest of minutiae, right? This will be great when they can do this and have the weld seams just disappear into the structure. I'm going to have to go offline soon because I have to feed the kitties, and the kitties, of course, will get very angry if I don't feed them. Also, I'm starving and I haven't had any dinner. I've had 3 beers, though. Do you think it's possible to comfortably fit 100 people in 0G for months on end? I think the question of comfort is, yeah, that's a good question. I just really want, I don't care if it's 10 people or 20 people, I want them just to not burn up on re-entry, right? Is Elon going to call his next spaceship Starship Destroyer? Oh my god, Elon's philosophies, let me tell you. No, I'm kind of with him, right? The human race does need to look beyond Earth, but equally, the human race can't ignore Earth. Elon is very much somebody that understands that you gotta first and foremost, trust the scientists, right? Trust the scientists that aren't getting paid huge amounts of money to find ridiculous answers, right? You do have to build things that will take you to new worlds, because that's what people want. Earth must come first, and then beyond that, once we get everything else, climate change and flat earthers don't merge. Long is wrong, right is tight. Tight is right, yes. But I think the human race, here's the thing, my fundamental philosophy, you want to hear my philosophy, is we have evolved. We have been evolving for billions of years to create a better and better mechanism of replicating ourselves. Single cellular life became multicellular. We evolved new mechanisms for harnessing oxygen. There was a whole oxygen catastrophe where we literally killed off everything that didn't like oxygen. Human race evolved out of multicellular, 3 beers and not any food. Human race essentially evolved the next step up. We're no longer passing the DNA down, we are now passing information down, right? But we are in this environment, and the Earth will dry out in 1 billion years' time, right? The human race needs to move beyond Earth if we are going to preserve this lineage, this knowledge, this creation, because elsewhere in the universe, as far as I'm concerned, elsewhere in the universe, life could evolve. It won't be human life. They will have the same laws of physics. They will have the same math. They will have the same. May have similar biology. They might have different biology, but they are going to exist. But they will not have our art. And you know what? Percy Sledge's "When a Man Loves a Woman" is the most perfect piece of music ever created. It was perfect first time. It didn't need to get covered like everything that Bob Dylan does. And if the human race dies out because we can't get beyond Earth, because we can't escape our sun, that will be a major tragedy, because Percy Sledge's "When a Man Loves a Woman" will be lost to the universe. And other civilizations may rise and fall, but they will not have created that one perfect moment of art. And that's why we need to keep moving into the universe, and we need to keep surviving. The sun will grow old and die, and we need to be elsewhere. Other stars will grow old and die. We will find stars that will live for trillions of years, and we will live next to them, and we will maintain this great pantheon of magnificent creative works that humanity has created. And we will just continue trying to fight against the second law of thermodynamics that says that entropy always increases. We can keep going for a really long time. Sure, there will be a point where we are facing the heat death of the universe, or the Big Rip, or something else, but we have billions, nay trillions of years to work to solve those problems. And we owe it to ourselves to continue to try and solve those problems and keep all these things around, because Percy Sledge's "When a Man Loves a Woman" is perfect in every way. There. You think you heard this monologue in Babylon 5. Yeah, Babylon 5 is also pretty special, and we deserve to keep that going as well. Yeah. I'm just going to say, I have this kind of philosophy that there are great... I love music, and so many pieces of music. I always have music running in my head. But so many pieces of music are not perfect on their first recording. It's so rare to get something that is never improved by a cover version, right? And Percy Sledge, that was perfect in every single way, and will never be improved upon. I firmly believe that. Whereas Bob Dylan, one of the greatest lyricists ever. Like, everything he works is absolute poetry. But every single thing that he has done has been done better, has been re-recorded better by someone else. Like, yeah. Bob. I hold Bob in such high regard, but he can't sing as well. Like that's me. Anyway, but yeah. So anyway, that's my philosophy. That we are basically, as a species, we are life. We are fighting the good fight against the second law of thermodynamics, and we have to keep moving out there. So anyway, yeah, I think I have to actually go offline. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for talking. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but yeah. Where are we? I'm going to have to say, good night, farewell, thank you very much. Thanks for everyone that tuned in. Thanks for everybody that listened to me talking through this rubbish. Thanks for people that paid attention to Elon and were, sufficiently wowed, but also equivalently, skeptical in the good ways. I really hope this flies. That would be the most amazing thing ever. I hope it doesn't break up. I hope there's no problems. And I'm glad that you all have great questions. You can always follow me on Twitter. You can always follow me on YouTube. I will be making a smaller version of this. I will upload this to YouTube because I think this has been a pretty good stream. But yeah, thanks everyone. Have a great night. I'm Scott Manley. Fly safe.